Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you guys doing? And welcome to another live stream with the champ, with the main man, with the victim of racial abuse. How are you guys doing? I hope you guys are well. Today we're going to be speaking with Hijab Haqiqatjou. He wanted to come and have a discussion, and of course, he and anybody else is welcome who has a significant platform and has things to contribute, to discuss. There are things, obviously, me and Daniel agree with and we disagree with on certain issues. But I'm sure Daniel and a lot of other people nowadays agree that the right thing to do is unify now. And we've been talking about unity for a long time. And I think it's poignant because the fact is this, guys, let's be honest about it, right? We talk about these مسائل فقهية, مسائل عقدية, fiqhi, jurisprudential, creedal matters, because we have the luxury to speak about them now. But if we look in the last 20, 30, 50, 100 years, we will find that Muslim lands have been plundered, have been decimated, have been destroyed. Millions of Muslim lives have been killed by the hegemonic power, the United States of America. And all of that may not have happened, or a lot of that may not have happened, had we had the unification of Muslims. And that's why they're finding an opportunity to harm us. But the unification of Muslims is not just a governmental ordeal between the governments and between the peoples. The unification of Muslims is something which we have to spearhead as the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That Allah does not change the condition of a people until they change the condition of themselves. And unity does not equate uniformity. Now, this is something which we, I think, need to be very clear about. When I say that Muslims need to unify, I'm not saying we should all now have the same aqidah or that we should all unite upon one fiqh school, or that aspects of creed which go against, for example, our religion should be something that we put into the creed. This is not what we're talking about. Uniformity is accepting that there are differences between Muslims, but despite those differences, that we will work together on certain causes. It doesn't mean we have to work together on all causes. It doesn't mean we have to eat lunch every day together at the same time in the same restaurant. It doesn't mean that we have to marry each other, people from different creedal backgrounds or different schools of thought. It doesn't mean any of those things. All it means is that when we find that there are issues, between Muslim people, that we can put those issues to the side in order to look at the bigger picture. This is what we're talking about. So unity and uniformity are two different things. Now, there are people who want this noble objective, which the Quran mentions, and people who do not want this noble objective, which the Quran mentions. The Quran tells us clearly, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا, that come together, hold on to the ropes or the rope of Allah together, and do not become divided. That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. Now, if you go to certain Madkhalist mosque, and if I just made a khutbah, or someone made a khutbah, because I wouldn't be allowed in the mosque, let's be honest, but let's say someone made a khutbah and they were saying that, Allah says in the Quran, unite together. وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. Allah says that in the Quran. And he stopped there. I promise you that that person would be refuted by the people inside of that mosque. Why? They will tell him, why is it that you mentioned وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا? Come to hold to the rope of Allah together and do not disunite. And you didn't mention, but we cannot unite upon batil, and it cannot be this, and the innovator that one, and this one here, and this guy here, and this. Why didn't you put all these caveats that we've invented for you? Well, the reason why is because the Quran doesn't put any of those caveats. So if you truly say that you follow the Quran and Sunnah, so why do we need to put conditionals and caveats where Allah does not put conditionals or caveats? There is no verse in the Quran that tells us that unity, when it comes to cause and doing good together, is limited by someone's belief. Let me repeat that again. There's actually no verse. So when Allah says, وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ, that come together in piety. So if, for example, let me give you an easy example, because people don't understand what I'm saying. So let me make it easy for you, because I think people have misunderstanding or lack of intelligence. Sorry to put it that way, but that's what it is. If we had a charity project, homelessness charity project, and then you say you had a Christian neighbor, okay? Or let's say you had like a Jewish neighbor or an atheist neighbor, yeah? And he says, Muhammad or whatever your name is, he says, look, let's go out together and let's give charity to these homeless people here. This is a noble cause and objective. Okay, so you're unifying on an objective with somebody. Is it haram to do charity with this Christian? Is that your belief? وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى. عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى. So it's good. You can do this. There's no problem. For example, in Palestine issue, people are now raising money for Palestine, raising awareness for Palestine. Say, listen, before I send this message, I need to make sure that you're not on Maturidi. Because if you are, I can't unify with you on these matters. If you're a Maturidi, you will not receive this WhatsApp message, for example. Is this what it's going to become? So the point is this is embarrassing. The fact that we all even have to speak about these kinds of things. And it's more embarrassing that we're doing all of this. You know, it's more embarrassing that we have to spell this out, and we have to now wait for another, I don't know, 100 million Muslims to die in the next 100 years. Okay. Oh, Daniel's here, mashallah. So let me just finish the sentence and we're going to bring Daniel on. But how many people have died because of your immaturity? How many people have died? If madkhalism becomes stronger, and if takfirism becomes stronger, and if racism becomes stronger, and if the forces of disunity become stronger in the ummah, let me ask you one simple question. The next 50 to 100 years, will more Muslims die or will less Muslims die? That's all I'm asking. How many countries? Some people are saying no sound. I don't know can you guys hear me? And then I saw it somewhere. Can someone hear me? Can you all hear me? I don't know. It's okay. Hopefully you can hear me. It's fine. Okay. So the point is this. Yeah, the point is this. If you're saying we cannot work with someone unless they're the same exact aqidah as us, or they're the same, even worse, even the same race or the same tribe. This is going back to. If we do that, then okay, let me ask you, do you reckon there's going to be more or less death of Muslims in the next 100 years? Now let's try and use our minds together. Let's try and use our minds together. Will there be more death of Muslims, more suffering of Muslims, more, or will there be less? Now, that's about death and killing and all that destruction. Okay. What about if you're, let's say, Muslims in the West, very specifically, right? If there's more disunity between Muslims of different groups and different backgrounds in the West, my simple question to you, are we going to be weaker or stronger? Is the right wing more likely to have victory over us, or are we more likely to have victory over the right wing? Are we more likely to protect our interests for our children and our grandchildren, or is the opposite more likely to be true? If we can get people to rally around a cause or a charity or this or that or the other, a petition, whatever it may be that we decide, which one makes sense? I mean, if the forces of disunity, the takfirists and the tabdi'ists and the racists and the zealots from all the groups, they need to understand there needs to be an understanding of this. Now, with that, I'm going to bring in a very well-known individual here, Daniel. MashaAllah. Assalamu alaikum. How are you?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you, brother?
Alhamdulillah. It's been a long time since we've seen each other and discussed with one another.
Yeah, long time, absolutely. But good to see you. Good to be here talking to you. Seems like you've been getting a little bit of controversy these days.
Yeah, well, me and you both, I think that's one thing that we've got in common. I think nowadays controversy is like, even the least controversial figures are getting into controversy. I don't know whether controversy is something we find or it finds us, but it's part of the game. How are you, man? What's been happening with you?
I've been doing good, just busy. I'm trying to finish a book that I'm writing, and it's been a long time in the making, but had to really buckle down and take a break from making videos on a regular basis to finish the book and get it out there.
What's the book about?
It's about RAND. It's about the RAND
really?
agenda. Yeah, so the think tank of the U.S. military and how they strategize to reform Islam, doctrinally change Islam, create infighting between Muslims, create problems between Muslims. So, yeah, it's
what did you find? Anything
topic.
Interesting so far in your research that you found that they're trying to fund these guys?
Yeah, I mean, they're mainly consider the moderates, quote unquote moderates, to be the US's best allies. So they define moderates as they're not like pure secularists. They're not like the type that says that we need to, take out Islam completely and we have to be pure secular modern people. The moderates that they define are Muslims who believe in kind of a separation of church and state, basically, that Islam should be a private matter and in your home, but we still value the symbols of Islam publicly, but Islam has nothing to do with legislation or running a country, and it's like a secular system basically with the trappings of Islam, with the kind of outward symbols of Islam. That's who they identify as the prime partners that they need to support in the Muslim world. And so they target the Muslim world. They also target Muslims domestically in the West. They say that Muslims in the West can be our ambassadors to promote this kind of secularized, even though they don't want to use the word secularized, they want to use the word, moderate. The moderate Muslims in the West are going to be our ambassadors. We're going to use them as kind of the role models for the Muslims in the East. And that's how we do soft power. We can soft power influence the Muslim world to adopt a political stance that marginalizes political Islam, marginalizes any kind of notion of pan-Islamic unity. They're explicitly against pan-Islamic unity, by the way. RAND is. They say this is a problem. This creates transnational collaboration, and this makes the Muslims too powerful. And we don't want that. We want to actually weaken the Muslims. So we have to create infighting. We have to really, I mean, this is what their documents say. It's all public. You can go read RAND's Civil Democratic Islam, Building Moderate Muslim Networks, Muslim World After 9/11. These are their main books that they wrote, and RAND published it.
Which one is the best one to read? Which one is the most interesting one?
The one that really opened your eyes is Civil Democratic Islam, because it's shorter too. It's less than 100 pages by Cheryl
Mm.
Bernard, Rand analyst. And this is where they lay out the doctrinal changes that they want. And they specify issues, like they have marker issues where they say that this is how you identify like a fundamentalist. This is how you
Here it
define,
is.
this is how you identify a
So
traditionalist.
we've got it here. Look, this is the one,
Yeah,
right?
that's exactly it, right?
Yes. So tell us, give us some of the people are already calling you a liar. So we've got to bring it in front of this on the screen. See, this is the Naql Sahih. Okay,
Yeah.
so tell us now, what are you looking at here?
Yeah,
And
you
there's a whole thing
can.
on polygamy there.
Yeah, mapping the issues. So that's how
Oh my
those are
God.
their marker issues where they define.
Now we have to go to war with them. No, joke. Yes. Anyway, yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. So they say like depending on what your views are, there's like 13 issues depending on what your views are on women's dress, like hijab, what your views are on
Ah,
polygamy, what your views are on jihad, what your views are on hudud, what
aha.
your views are. This is what determines what box you fit in, you know.
Oh, I see.
And that's how they define what a
SubhanAllah.
moderate is. So it's like the doctrinal issues. And then they go like very specifically. They go very specifically. For example, they say we need to undermine the madhahib. Literally, we
Mm.
need to undermine the madhahib. We need to undermine not hadith. Okay, they say we need to develop a database of counter hadith. Okay, hadith that we can use to manipulate hadith to promote like democracy and secularism and Western human rights values. So it's all very explicit. It's all
Probably
there.
what they're not putting in these public reports is what's worse,
Yeah,
because we know they're trying to undermine the hadith now, and they're trying to undermine, and it's become somewhat of a trend actually on social media. I don't know if you've been seeing that, but there's a lot of
yeah,
them that have been coming out, the feminists and all this, that they're all, it's becoming a very popular thing to reject hadith now.
yeah, yeah. In academia as well, but yeah, this is what I've been writing about, and it ties into what you're discussing, of course, with Wahhabis and the kind of effort to disunite the Muslims to create
Well, you see, what I try
conflict.
to do, this all started with my issue. It all started when I was in Sapiens. Actually, it was a very mundane sort of academic exercise where we were going through the differences, because we were mentioning about Ibn Taymiyyah, and we said, okay, well, what's the differences between Ibn Taymiyyah and Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab? And at that point, I said, well, it seems like the clearest difference is their implementation of takfir. And I didn't think that would be a controversial statement as it was, but and then I said something else, I think, which was added salt to the wound, which is that I said, well, I really believe that the early history of the early Dawah Najdiyah, the Dawah Najdi Dawah, is being preserved and honored due to like nationalism. Okay, now that might not make sense to a lot of people. In the beginning, I think it was nationalism, and then it was exported outside. Now, why do I say that? Was because when I started looking at the books, okay, and I started reading Ad-Durra Saniyya, and I started reading Tarikh Najd of Ibn Bishr and Ibn Ghannam and all of these other chroniclers who were basically sympathetic to these guys, I found that there's a completely different attitude that they had to the to Ibn Taymiyyah, frankly, and they were making mass takfir, and they were making takfir of the Ottomans and those who allied with the Ottomans, and that was, in my estimation, it was clearly politically motivated. I'll give you examples of that, right? So, if you look at Abdullah, who is the Sulaiman ibn Abdullah al-Sheikh, who is the grandson of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, okay? He wrote a book, and in that book, he was justifying why the Ottomans are disbelievers and why those who ally with the Ottomans are disbelievers, okay? So that is actually a chain takfir. He's making a chain takfir. Now, this individual was around maybe, I don't know when he died, 1818, something like this, right? So if he died 1818, this is before the Tanzimat. So Tanzimat were a period of time in the Ottoman period where there was like movement towards westernization. You could just say it that way. So even if someone wanted to say, okay, well, actually, he did it because X, Y, and Z, the truth is, this chain takfir, all right, was happening way before even a Tanzimat. And I started looking, is he alone in doing that? And then I realized, no, this is like basically the same fatwa was being promoted throughout the years, throughout the 1700s, 1800s, mostly the 1800s and 1900s. Okay. So I realized, okay, well, these guys have a completely different attitude, because what they're doing is they're making takfir on certain issues, and then they are fighting as a result. They're fighting people. Ibn Taymiyyah never did that. Ibn Taymiyyah, I mentioned that he had a response to a guy called Al-Bakri, who believed in al-istighatha. Istighatha, saying, Ya Ali, Ya Muhammad, etc., right? And that this book, Ar-Raddu al-Bakri, never made takfir of al-Bakri. And when Bakri needed help, he brought him into his house and he protected him from the government. By the way, there's another story that people don't know with Ibn Taymiyyah, is that when he was in prison, the authorities came to him and they said, there are some people that believe in istighatha, etc., etc. We need a fatwa, actually. This is very interesting. Because some people say, well, Ibn Taymiyyah didn't have political authority, right? But this one here destroys that argument too, because Ibn Taymiyyah, at one point, they approached him in prison and they said, well, can you give us a fatwa to execute these individuals as a result of believing these shirky things, A, B, and C? And he refused to give them a fatwa on that basis. He actually refused to give them a fatwa on that basis. So, which means that he obviously had a different approach. And it should not be that controversial to say this. But people are attached, emotionally and otherwise. And it seems that if you say anything about any scholar, that is in that period, then that's it. It's game over. Well, to be honest, we're not beholden to that. We don't have to. I'm sorry to say, who do you think is paying us? Who do you think is forcing us to speak? If I've come to a conclusion based on reading, I don't need anybody to endorse that. Okay, that's it. And then I gave them an ultimatum. I said, listen, if you really want to follow the way of the Dawah al-Najdiyah, and let me put a caveat here, not all the Dawah Najdiyah, not all the Mashayikh and Ulama of the Dawah Najdiyah were like that. Like if you, for example, look at As-Sa'di, who obviously was much later, but As-Sa'di was the teacher of Ibn Uthaymeen. He obviously wrote the book, the famous Tafsir, which is actually a fantastic book. And he was a very learned and scholarly man, right? He wasn't like this. I'm not even saying that, for example, Ibn Uthaymeen or Albani were like. Albani had harsh things to say about this. Albani actually said, this is extreme, what happened here with this takfir. Albani said, Nasruddin Albani posited a refutation on the early Dawah al-Najdiyah. So if I say the same thing as what Nasruddin Albani said, which is that these guys were essentially, going too far with not just making takfir, but then implementing that takfir, then a lot of people are going to come out. Nationalists are going to say, why are you mentioning Najd? As if we care about, I don't even know the difference between the Hijazi people and the Najdi people. I don't know about these. This is not intended to be an ethnic discussion. I don't even know the difference. If they started speaking in front of me, I wouldn't even know the difference. And this one's from Tihama, and this one's from Najd, and this one's from Hijaz. I don't know the difference between the taqalid and I don't know. I don't care. I'm talking about books that I've read and dawah that I've covered. And in that regard, I'm sorry to say, I have come to the conclusion that when it comes to mass takfir and killing the people, it's obvious that these people did that. And that I believe they did it for political reasons, as bad as it sounds, because their main competitor was the Ottoman Empire. So they had to theologically justify why they're going against the Ottoman Empire. And that's it. It's not as rosy and as puritanical as you think it is. I know in terms of Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab himself, all right, someone will say, but you shouldn't mention anything about the Sheikh. How dare you mention anything about the Sheikh? Okay. But I didn't even mention anything about him. I didn't, until this time, I'm waiting for someone to bring a word that I said that was like a bad word about Ibn Abdul Wahhab. I simply
Well, you
said,
did. I mean, you said that
yeah,
he was not like Ibn Taymiyyah, like
yeah,
his doctrine differs. Like
but
that's
I don't.
basically the kill shot. Like
No,
that's
but
because the whole
no, but
basis of their
yeah,
ideology
it's
is
not
that
like
they
I
are
was sitting there
following the
saying the
path of
man
the
was a
Salaf, right?
fasiq and the man was a kafir and the man was this and that. Look, do you
He
know the
was a
thing is,
deviant. Like
Daniel?
he was a deviant, and his
Yeah, I
ideology.
didn't even
When you
go there. I
say
just said, listen, it looks like I've looked at what he did after 1744 when he did his pact with Ibn Saud, when he's going to Dawasir and different tribes and basically rendering the Sufis there as disbelievers and then killing them. And I just
they weren't
think
even
that that's
Sufis,
different to
even
the
his
way Ibn
brother.
Taymiyyah would have dealt with things. And I believe that this history is protected for nationalistic reasons. That's my conclusion, which, by the way, seems to fit the almost consensus view of Western academia, by the way. I mean, I think there's only like one or two revisionists in Western academia who basically make Ibn Abdul Wahhab out to be some sort of defender, like defending himself, like a pacifist, not pacifist, but someone he's defending. But you know, because of the aqwal that he says, in kunna la nukaffiru man ya'budu al-qubur, and whoever, if we didn't, what do you call it, make takfir of the people who do worship the graves. So people look at these aqwal, but in terms of the Western academic sphere, essentially everyone agrees this was an expansionist, it was a militarist, it was, and even the like historians from the East. So everyone agrees except for one or two people, and people that want to protect a history. And my only thing, Daniel, was I said to the guys, if you're being faithful to Ibn Abdul Wahhab, then you end up as takfiri. Like, you know, those takfiri groups that we see? That is the end result of this, of the majority of these da'wah. If you don't like that, then with all due respect, these individuals, they don't know what they're talking about. If these people would have met them and seen them, they would have considered them to be kuffar themselves. I believe they would have made takfir of them.
Like the person that we're talking about is someone who said that no one understood Tawheed before me, and none of my teachers and none of his teachers were in Mecca and Medina, and he said none of my teachers, no one before me understood Tawheed. Like this is the kind of narcissist psycho Ibn Abdul Wahhab was. Okay, and even like, and then people will say, no.
I would say, the Wahhabis will say
he
was refuted by his brother.
Let me finish. Yeah, his brother, he even takfired his brother Sulaiman ibn Abdul Wahhab. Like it wasn't just the Sufis. The people that Ibn Abdul Wahhab takfired was anyone, and this is right there in Tarikh al-Najd with Ibn Bishr and Ibn al-Ghannam. They takfired anyone who decided to go against them. It was purely political. Anyone who went against Ibn Saud, anyone who would not agree to come under Ibn Saud and basically become under his control, they called them apostates, murtadeen.
That's right.
So it wasn't just Sufis, okay? This was a wide net that they cast, because Sulaiman ibn Abdul Wahhab was a follower of Ibn Taymiyyah, was a Hanbali, traditional Hanbali follower of Ibn Taymiyyah, not like a extreme Sufi grave worshipper. But Ibn Abdul Wahhab takfired his own brother and wanted him killed, wanted him to be brought to death. Like that's as a murtad. Like that's the kind of psycho extremism. And the point that you made, which I absolutely agree with, is that look, if someone did that, anything close to that today, we would say that these are disgusting terrorists. They have nothing to do with the Muslim community, with the Ummah.
By the way, can I
clearly
ask you
identify that?
I didn't know that he takfired his brother, but if I'm honest, where did he do that? Can you? Where's the nas for that one? Do you remember?
I don't remember the exact nas. It was in the Wahhabism documentary. We included it, but yeah, it's well known because his brother opposed him, and his brother, with his book Divine Lightning, he comes and which has been translated. Refutes his brother Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab and says that you have misread Ibn Taymiyyah. Basically, your critique of Ibn Abdul Wahhab, he says that you have misread Ibn Taymiyyah. If we take your methodology of takfir, we have to takfir the Hanbali school, we have to takfir Imam Ahmad, we have to takfir the entire, because that's the essence of Ibn Abdul Wahhab's deviance, is that he invents this new methodology of takfir. It's like a hyper takfir, chain takfir, without udhr bil jahal, without excuse of ignorance.
No udhr bil jahal. This is one of the key areas, I think. You're absolutely right. Look, to be honest, I mean, it's so obvious. People here in the West who have been indoctrinated with a specific kind of dawah that has been promulgated at the time for soft power reasons, political reasons, whatever it may be. They can't think outside of whatever they've been told. I promise you, the majority of people who don't like what we're saying relating to these facts, okay, are people who have never read a single book. They have, wallahi, I believe that even the talabat al-ilm, they have not opened the book, they have not read the book. Because if they've read the books, they cannot come to any other conclusion that the most faithful people to the Dawah Najdiyah, and I'm once again not generalizing every single person from the Najd, every single alim. There's very many non-takfirist, very sensible and scholarly and excellent ulama, like Sa'di, as I mentioned, like Albani. He was against all of this. But those individuals, if you follow what they say, it leads to takfirism. It leads to, you should be you should be persuaded by the takfiri dawah, by the Al-Qaedas and the ISISes, and that's what it is. That's what it would entail, okay, if you believe in that.
It's not an entailment, it's like an explicit teaching.
They are more
explicit teaching of Ibn Abdul Wahhab is that if you do not takfir anyone who doesn't follow, Ibn Abdul Wahhab's conception of Tawheed, if you do not takfir them actively, then your Islam is actually not complete. He says this explicitly. He says that if you are not, you can believe in the Shahada, you can do all your wajibat, your obligatory ibadah, and you don't have to be a quburi. You can denounce, actually. You can denounce istighatha. But if you don't take the extra step of takfiring those who are outside of this manhaj, then you become a kafir. None of that praying and fasting and believing in Allah, reading Quran, none of that counts.
That himself, yeah?
Yes.
Do you remember where you read that?
Mufid al-Mustafid. That's his book where he
delineates that. Okay, yeah.
Yes.
I'll have to go back to that one because I know for a fact his followers definitely said that, but I just want to know if he said that.
No, he himself said that his followers aren't just making this stuff up. They're getting it directly from him. And the quote I mentioned about him saying that no one understood Tawheed before me, his own grandson, Abdurrahman, who wrote Fath al-Majid, which is the sharh of Kitab al-Tawheed, says that it basically affirms this.
Abdurrahman or Abdullah?
I think it's Abdurrahman. I think.
Okay,
I might be wrong, but it's Fath al-Majid. That's the sharh of Kitab al-Tawheed, and this is the grandson of Ibn Abdul Wahhab, who wasn't like a distant relative. He was actually learning directly from Ibn Abdul Wahhab because Ibn Abdul Wahhab lived to be about over 90 years old. So his direct student, his grandson, one of his closest family members, affirmed that belief that Ibn Abdul Wahhab understood Tawheed. Basically, the way that they line it up is that there was the Salaf. Then after the Salaf, basically 200 years after the Prophet ﷺ, then there's just shirk, all the way to Ibn Taymiyyah. No one understood Tawheed between the Salaf and Ibn Taymiyyah. Then Ibn Taymiyyah comes, and then there's shirk again all the way for another few centuries until Ibn Abdul Wahhab comes and rediscovers Tawheed. Like, this is their conception of history, Islamic history. And that's why, like, when they say, when you come and you say that, no, actually, Ibn Abdul Wahhab has misread Ibn Taymiyyah, you're cutting the link that they have. Like, you're basically cutting off the isnad, and you're acknowledging that's a deviant movement.
They've been sold a lie. See, this is why I differentiate between following the Salaf, and being a neo-Salafist. And this is the terminology, a modern Salafist. A modern Salafist or a neo-Salafist, is an individual who amalgamates contradictory ideas and views. So, for example, they will usually revere, like the modern, I would say, non-violent ones, they usually revere like obviously the Salaf themselves, although they have very limited discussion about those. And then they'll have, maybe some of them will discuss like Al-Lalaka'i and Ibn Battah and Barbahari and those, more so than the Sahaba themselves. And then afterwards, they'll start talking about Ibn Taymiyyah. Imam Ahmad first, then Ibn Taymiyyah. And then after Ibn Taymiyyah, they'll start speaking about, for example, the Najdi Dawah. And then after that, there you have like, Ibn Uthaymeen, Ibn Baz, etc., etc. So this is when you're a Salafi, you're inaugurated with that. You're told the modern Salafi is given that sort of distinction. You've got to follow these scholars. By the way, you can put anything on the screen if you want. It's Zishan, so you can do. Yeah, so so this is basically this is what it is, right? So my point is this: these people did not have the same view. So, like Al-Albani explicitly rejects, okay, in many fatwas, he explicitly rejects what Ibn Abdul Wahhab did, and he explicitly rejects his followers what he did as well. And you can't, nobody can deny that. Okay, we'll say the only argument is, well, he also praises Ibn Abdul Wahhab for abolishing shirk practices. Fine, it doesn't discount from the fact that he also dispraised Ibn Abdul Wahhab for extremism takfir, that he went too far in takfir. So how do you reconcile? It's not really reconcilable like that. So these are different strands of Salafism, and they just have to understand that. They have to believe that. They have to. They've been sold a lie that all of these people agree. Ibn Taymiyyah would have been way more reserved of takfir, and he would have. And look at the people around. Look, Al-Albani, for example, right? One of his big inspirations was, rahimahullah, was As-San'ani and Ash-Shawkani, right? Who both lived in Yemen, obviously, were basic, no la madhabi kind of individuals. They've written many books of hadith and shuruh and stuff like that. They were huge scholars. They were very bona fide scholars. Both of those scholars attacked Ibn Abdul Wahhab. They wrote compendious refutations of Ibn. They were contemporary to him in the late 1700s, wherever it was, and they wrote compendiums against him, refutations, proper refutation, detailed refutations. So if we're not allowed, look, see, they're not allowing us to repeat what some of their scholars are saying. I mean, you're a modern Salafi, you accept As-San'ani, you accept Ash-Shawkani, you accept Al-Albani, you accept Ibn Taymiyyah. You're pretending that they all agreed with Dawat al-Najdiyya. We're telling you, actually, these people differed, and we have proof of that. Like you said, Sulaiman, the brother, differed with Ibn Abdul Wahhab. He wrote a book on it, Sawa'iq al-Mursala, or the Divine Thunderbolts, or how to translate Divine Thunderbolts. It was a hard huh?
Yeah,
how did the
Divine Lightning? Yeah, the thunder.
Yeah, this whatever, So what do you want? He's been refuted. He's been refuted by your look. So someone, if Albani refutes somebody, usually this is written off. Okay, I mean, like, that's what it is. But he's been refuted by his own brothers. He's been refuted by San'ani. He's been refuted by Shawkani. He's been refuted by Ibn Abdin, by the way, who's the Hanafi scholar. He called him Khawarij.
Bro, like, we can't pretend.
He's one of the biggest Hanafi scholars of all time, I think. Probably top, I don't know, 20 or something, top 10. And he refuted him.
We're talking as if these are honest interlocutors, like rational interlocutors that we're debating. That's not the case. Like, why did they attack you? They started attacking you because you go, for example, on Sneeko's podcast and you start talking about how, the Muslims should be in support of Iran winning against Israel, against the Zionists. You go and you call for pan-Islamic unity with all different Muslim sects together. You call for something that is politically problematic to them. And therefore, they try to find any kind of argument against you to discredit you, do ad hominem against you, whether it is to call you the N-word, saying that you're, this and that, you're African, like attacking your family. Then they say that you're potentially kafir, Uncle Shekel Collector, as we call him, comes on and says that you are potentially a kafir. Imagine that. I thought this is someone.
So
Adnan Rajid comes on and says, you are potentially a kafir. Imagine that.
No. I spoke to
Adnan.
Let me tell you something. Look, let me be fair. Let me be fair, right? So Adnan Rashid and I disagree with, obviously, on the matters of like Iran and Dawat al-Najdiyya and all that. He would disagree with everything I've just said here, right? But as a man, I have to say that, he has good qualities. He does have good qualities. And I've seen him and I've been with him and I've seen him, feed poor people in front of me. Wallahi, I've seen him no cameras on him. No cameras. Wow. I'm 100%. Whoa. He's a man who speaks to people, does dawah to them without any camera being there on him.
Wow.
I believe
he's as good as MBZ. He's as good as MBZ and MBS. They also give charity to the poor,
No,
isn't that what the Wahhabis say?
No,
isn't that what Madkhalis say?
we've got to be fair. I know him more than you do. I've traveled with him. I've been with him around and stuff, and I can tell you, I can vouch for the fact that he has some really positive traits, and he has sincerity for the ummah. And one thing I will say with Daniel, which I didn't agree with when you did, and I have to be honest with you, is that when you, I think it was on Twitter, you put something and you connected him with like a terrorism related thing, right? And if I'm honest with you, I know him very well. This is something he is.
I mean, that's not what I did. That's not what I did at all.
Okay, well, we'll come to this.
I made the point. I made the same point that you did, that Wahhabism is an ideology that justifies terrorism, and that ISIS is following Ibn Abdul Wahhab, and it's specifically following this takfir doctrine. So when we see ISIS act so when we see someone like Adnan Rashid or any of these clowns, and they go and they say that Muhammad Hijab is potentially a kafir, you don't know like what kind of psychos, like Daeshis, they're still around in places like London, Birmingham. You don't know who's going to come up behind you. You don't know who. When he's saying that you're potentially a kafir, imagine that. These are his words.
He didn't say it like that, though, Daniel. What he said was this. I remember what he said. I can read it out for you if you like. I think it's. I don't know if it's there or not, or if it's been deleted. But what he said was that if Muhammad Hijab believes X, Y, and Z, right, then he is a kafir too. Right, and the X, Y, and Z that he was referring to was the was basically Shia beliefs.
Mass takfir, yeah. If you don't mass takfir the Shia,
no, not that. I don't think he was,
because they have this belief. They have this belief. Therefore, if you don't believe that they're all kuffar, then you are a kafir. That's what he said about you.
Let me get it, because I think we have to be very fair. I don't think he did say that. I think what he said was. I think what he said. Yeah, I mean,
that was the entire point of dispute between you two. He wants, you're calling for unity with the Shia.
You got it, yeah.
And he's saying that these are
no, because I don't think he was saying he wasn't doing a chain thing. He was, to be fair, because we have to be fair about these things. He was saying that. Well, actually, let's bring it up. Let's
bring it up. Let's bring it up.
Yeah, have you got it on the screen? You might be right. If you're right, then I can see the point. But I don't think you're honest. Okay, let's see.
And the crazy thing is that he also is very vocal about unity with Hindus, Muslims being unified with Hindus.
But let's do one thing at a time. Let's just do this one first, because otherwise we'll lose track of it. But in the meantime, what I'll say is this. Okay, here we go. Have you got it? All right. Okay. Yeah, all right. Can you zoom into that? Can you read it? Well, okay, what does it say? Okay. These are confirmed mainstream 12 Shia beliefs. Sorry, I can't read everything here because I can't see. If the answer is no, then Hijab himself becomes. Yeah. Can you bring it up a bit? You just scroll up so I can't see. So he's saying that these are confirmed, 12 Shia beliefs. If the answer is no, then Hijab himself becomes a kafir, denying Tawatur reports of these people promised Jannah, etc., etc. Denying Tawatur is denying Quran. So I think what he's trying to say is that if I deny Tawatur reports, then I become he's not saying, which is, by the way, the truth with everyone. Okay, because when I spoke to him,
what's the initial tweet? Like, what's the initial tweet that he is responding to?
He was responding to himself. I believe he was saying in the beginning that these are the beliefs of the Shia, right? Yeah. And if he Hijab goes against these beliefs, then he himself is a kafir. He's not saying that if he doesn't make takfir, then he's a kafir. So I have to be fair there. He's not saying that. But this is, Daniel, this is where you're criticized a lot of the time. These little things here, we've got to be really fair, especially with believers. We've got to be really fair when it comes to doing knuckle of them. Because if, for example, you say that, he's making mass takfir, blah, 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 connecting it in that sort of tenuous way.
I mean, you interpreted his words. I gave my interpretation. You give a charitable interpretation, and my reading is based on the larger context.
You should be charitable.
The larger context is that he is attacking you because you said to Sneeko that yes, we should ally with the Shia. whether it is with Iran, with Hezbollah, or whatever, there should be pan-Islamic alliance. This is what you were saying to Sneeko. And he picked that out and he clipped that. He said, this is impossible because they have kufr beliefs and they are all kafir. He masked the Shia.
I spoke to him for hours.
And in that context, he is saying that if you don't agree, then you are potentially a kafir.
I promise you, he doesn't mean that. I promise you, he doesn't mean it. And no one would accept that.
That's what he means. Like, if that's what he means, then
no, wallahi, I know he doesn't mean that.
There's no way to know that. What people read online, what people read from the thread is that, oh, hijab is potentially a kafir. That's what they read and they pick up. And he knows that. Okay? So he can't be so sensitive. So he's so sensitive where he says to me that, oh, Daniel is accusing me of being ISIS. Okay, he's that uncharitable with how he interprets. And by the way, he says that I'm an Iranian agent. He says that I'm working for the Iranian government. He says I'm a son of Mut'a. Okay, this is what he says about me. Yeah, what is the status of that in Islam? So let's keep things in context. That's his attacks against me. He says he takfirs me. You acknowledge that he takfirrs me.
Well, look, that's where I agree with you. Look, Daniel, that's where I agree with you. So obviously, if he's takfiring you, and if he did indeed say the things that he said, I saw the takfir, to be fair, and I was shocked by that, and that is not nice. That is, he's not qualified to do any takfir of anybody, and especially, you know, a person who's giving dawah, etc., and especially someone who you've got a personal beef with. But at the same time, bro, I have to be honest and say that some of the things that when you were interacting with him, I found distasteful too. I found that the fact that, you know, you connected his name with extremism, this can cause a lot of problems for people.
That's,
you know, and
being a Wahhabi,
it can cause problems for their families as well.
Hey, it's like a problem for me in America when he says that I am connected to the Iranian government. It causes a problem for me as well.
That's why I agree with you.
So I'm responding, and you're only looking at the response. So my claim, his claim is just a name calling, but my claim is academically correct. That Wahhabism is the ideology of ISIS, and they share the principles of takfir. You don't deny that, right? You don't deny that they share. ISIS has Ibn Abdul Wahhab's principles of takfir. Yes or no?
Like, so that's shared.
That's academically correct. For me to say that, all that Adnan, Rajit, and all of these Wahhabi apes have to say is that we actually disavow Ibn Abdul Wahhab's position on takfir. We disavow it. We disavow it, and we take Albani's position, for example. That's all they have to do. They refuse to do it. Why?
Okay. So let me tell you why.
Disavow that doctrine of takfir. That's a problem.
So I think what you could say is this. I'm not speaking about this. I'm not making a point about anyone's particular views like Adnan or anything else. But this is one thing I have noticed, right? What it is that they don't interpret Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab in the way that we do, right? So the way I've just interpreted and you've interpreted Muhammad ibn Wahhab is that he essentially done takfir, and as a result of it, he decided to massacre people who are not under his actual authority, because he went into different villages. So people say it was under his authority, so these are apostates, whatever. But they were not actually under his authority, because he went into villages which were not under his authority. So even that doesn't make sense. So that's what I think is the almost consensus view in Western and Eastern academia of the historical readings of Ibn Abdul Wahhab and those who came after. And that's what I hold to, and that's what you hold to. However, a lot of the modern Salafis have a revisionist understanding of Ibn Abdul Wahhab. Okay, so they have a revisionist reading of him. They say that really he was very careful when he made takfir, because if you read his Rasail, and if you read some of his other books, he's very careful to actually put on a PR sort of front, and he says things in kunna la nukaffir man ya'bud al-qubur, if we were the ones who didn't make takfir of the ones who used to worship the grave, etc. So even I noticed that there was, I think her name is Natana DeLongbass or something like that. You can double check her name, Natana DeLongbass. But she is a historian. She's a historian, American academic. Here we go. Here she is. Let me get it for you. Historian. She actually has the view, right, that Ibn Abdul Wahhab was more careful with takfir, right? She takes the same revisionist understanding of Ibn Abdul Wahhab. Not necessarily. I think there's pretty much consensus about the Dawah Najdiyya that came after him. But in terms of Ibn Abdul Wahhab himself, there's some level of plausible deniability. So a lot of these Salafis, modern day Salafis, neo-Salafis, and we all follow the Salaf, so just be clear about that. We all aspire to follow the Salaf, at least we try to, and we believe that if the Umar ibn Khattab was here, he would be trying to unite the people. We'll be trying to fix the issues, not doing this stuff. But anyway, she said she has this view, like Natana de Longbas. She has this view that he was responding, the takfir wasn't as bad. So look, it's not exactly.
I mean, the thing is
view
that
you
can go to Ibn Abdul Wahhab's statements themselves, and he has statements where he says that no, we give udhr bil jahl, and no, I don't mass takfir. Exactly. This is what the Wahhabis point to. You can go to the primary source. You don't even have to go to an academic. But the way to reconcile this, his statements that are pro mass takfir and those that are against, you reconcile it by looking at his actions. You look at it by who he is actually supporting, and the Wahhabis were invading, massacring, taking women and children as slaves. And some of the booty that they were taking actually was presented to Ibn Saud and presented to Ibn Abdul Wahhab by the Wahhabis. They would bring back the spoils of war that they've taken, the ransom that they've taken, the hostages that they've taken, and they'd present it to Ibn Saud and Ibn Abdul Wahhab. And this is documented by their historians. By their historians. You're absolutely
right.
So that's
I agree with your reading of history. I think your reading of history is the intuitive and consensus sort of reading of history. Except for, like I said, the revisionists. There are some Western ones, like this woman here, but I didn't see anyone else apart from her. Basically, who has the view that modern Salafis believe that he had tahaffud of takfir and like just like Ibn Taymiyyah did, and he had all the shurut and mawana and conditions and preventers. It's almost implausible when you look about what he did, but no problem. So the point is that if they have that view of Ibn Abdul Wahhab, so they can reconcile for themselves Albani and Ibn Abdul Wahhab. So they harmonizing the same, saying that he didn't do these things. They can start harmonizing like that. So some of them do that. Now, I know for a fact, like going back to Adnan Rashid, and I know that you refuted Farid and he's refuted you and Jake or whatever. And I don't know if the thing was all in one, right? Where you had like a one thing and you put these faces together. Then you put like this terrorist attack, right? That I have to be honest, that's absolutely like, for me, you shouldn't do that, bro. Because it can get them all in trouble. They're living in countries where they have families.
Do they get you in trouble when they say that you're potentially kafir, or they say I'm a mushrik? Does that get us potentially in trouble?
Yes,
like,
of course.
Don't you have to like look over your back? Like, so
no, you're right as well.
Stating academic, it's inconvenient for them. I agree. It's inconvenient. I would never do that to someone. Like, I'd never make a post like that against someone who is like just like a random Wahhabi. Okay, but this group specifically has coordinated an attack, a smear campaign against me for over almost 2 years, and they have even signed documents. They bring documents to call me a kafir, a mushrik. They have attacked my family. They have attacked me in so many ways.
Okay? I know these.
Physically threaten me with harm.
But Daniel, I can tell you,
followers are doing this. And none of those followers, by the way, when they were coming after you, when these apes were coming after you and saying you're the N-word, you're a disgusting African, I didn't see any of them defend you, by the way.
But to be fair,
they didn't defend you on that. So, I mean, this is not like something that I take seriously. So when people come and with this kind of force attack you and threaten you,
no, I get it.
And they're going to get it back. They're going to get it back. I'm not going to...
I totally understand it, because I've been on the receiving end of it. I've been exactly where you are.
You should be fair, Brother Muhammad. You should be fair, and you should call that out. Okay?
I call that out. I do.
Initially, before talking to me about, a post of mine.
No, I think both of it is wrong.
A fact that you agree with. You agree with me that they share the takfiri terrorist ideology of Ibn Abdul Wahhab.
Here's what I think is going on.
And the division that you're talking about, like you're saying, they don't interpret it differently. If they interpret it differently, they should make that clear, and they should disavow like specific teachings. They've actually proven that they agree with the takfiri ideology because they apply it to me and you. They're applying it, and they're takfiring me.
I doubt that any of them takfir. Oh yeah, with you, yes.
Yeah,
no, but I think the reason why they made takfir of you is completely different.
If you insist, though,
no, that part of it, I totally agree with you
as well.
I agree with you on that. So look here, on that point, bro, I agree with you that they should. Whoever did it, I think Jake made takfir of you, and I think, and obviously Adnan. I personally believe that that's outrageous, and they're not in a position to do that. Okay. However, I also believe it's outrageous what you did. That I know these people's families. I know that they're disavow like terrorism. I know they disavow like
Adnan has ties. Adnan has actual ties with these individuals, actually. Before he disavowed ISIS, he was sitting in their gatherings. Let's be honest about that.
No, I don't think ISIS existed.
Yeah, and it did
he
exist
was
in
never sitting in
2014,
the gatherings.
2015.
He was
Well,
never singing. I mean,
I mean,
Adnan Rashid has always disavowed it. I can tell you that for a fact.
yeah, after it became a problem, after it became a political problem, yeah, he disavowed it. But he was actually in their gatherings, and the idea of telling Muslims to go fight in Syria, he wasn't in those circles. He wasn't.
I doubt it, bro. We don't know anything about that, bro. No one here knows anything about that. If that's the case, no one has seen it, no one has heard it. We should have known. Ali Dawah should have. You think Ali Dawah would connect with somebody who does that? Ali Dawah was very careful with who he interacts with. He was living in his house, blah blah blah. No way, man. I don't think so, man. There's no way, man. So I really think that this is where we have to look. I'll be honest. ولا يجرمنكم شنآن قوم على ألا تعدلوا اعدلوا هو أقرب للتقوى. Right? There has to be a part of it where you think, you know what? Let's be just about this, right? I get your criticism, and I understand it's very frustrating. I've been on the receiving end of all these attacks from a lot of them, right? I actually, I would say lost composure. I say that actually with Adnan, and I regret that I lost composure with him. I think that it's better if I had been.
When did you lose composure? When did you lose composure?
But when after he put his thing up, but then afterwards I spoke to him, and then
that wasn't losing composure. He was talking. He was again like saying that you're potentially a kafir, and then you responded to his nonsense. Yes. He kept gaslighting you. Yeah. He kept saying, "Oh, you're a coward. You won't answer my questions." You repeatedly answered his questions about the Shia and Kufr, etc. He would not answer your questions because you pointed to a very specific issue. You said that if you are a true follower of Ibn Abdul Wahhab, then you need to do takfir like he did against these Gulf rulers, specifically the UAE. And he continuously dodged that. And then you said that, privately, he had told you certain things that he wouldn't disclose publicly in terms of his perspective about these Gulf governments. And you called him a coward. You called him a shekel collector. I think that's justified. I didn't call him a shekel
collector. This is not true. That's your words there. No, honestly. Look, I have to say, look.
I mean, why won't they? Like, why won't Adnan or Fareed, for example, why won't they condemn the UAE? Like they say, and that's the thing, they do takfir of Iran and Iran's rulers. But if you ask about the UAE allying Tawalli with Israel in their genocide, then suddenly I'm not a mufti. I'm not.
Here's where I agree.
This is shocking, right? This is shocking hypocrisy.
Here's where I agree with you. If you're gonna comment about the Middle East and politics and stuff like that, and you want to make a theological case about Iran, right? And you want to say that Iran is a disbelieving nation and it's full of Shiaism, etc. Well, if we're following the faithful letter of the Najdi Dawah, then it's not just the Gulf nations. Every single Muslim nation on the face of the planet, if those guys were alive, if As-Sahman was alive, if Al-Hamad ibn Atiq was alive, if Abdullah, the grandson of Ibn Abdul Wahhab was alive, if any of those people were alive, right, they would have made takfir of all of those countries, all 50 Muslim majority countries. So that's the point. I mean, the point is that's my belief. I agree with you on this. However, the difference is this. I mean, I think that there's two possibilities here. Number one is that they do ta'wil of some of his aqwal, and they have a revisionist reading of Ibn Abdul Wahhab, like Natana di Longbas, okay, which I would say is pretty implausible according to the majority of scholars, but nevertheless, they can have it. Or they feel like the times have changed and or that maybe, I don't know. I think it is a contradiction that it's impossible to square it. If you want to make takfir of these, you have to make takfir of these. It's true, actually. If you want to do this, you've got to do that. I do agree with that. However, this is our criticism of modern Salafism, and I think this is a fair-minded criticism. It's a true criticism. It's a correct criticism. However, these people in particular, they disavow extremism, they disavow terrorism, they disavow the takfirists, the ones who kill people.
No, they actually don't. They actually are in favor. They're in favor of massacres against Iranians. They're in favor of these attacks against Iran. Whenever the United States or Israel attack Iran, That's terrorism. They're bombing girls'
have
schools.
they come on the record saying that
They're in support. They say that they're neutral on this. When a girls' school in Iran is bombed and when Muslims are being massacred in
they
Iran,
probably condemn that. They
say they're
that,
neutral. No, they don't. When I specifically confront them, when I confront Adnan, I say condemn the UAE for backing the RSF genocide in Sudan. He refuses. He refuses to condemn the UAE specifically. He refuses to.
Well, look, maybe there's a reason for that, bro. Maybe
Why?
he's got family members there. Maybe he's
in the UAE. Oh yeah, that's true. Maybe he's getting money. He's getting money from them. And yeah, I agree.
Okay, I know the guy.
He benefits. He benefits from them. Some kind of benefit from their networks there. I don't know. I don't care. I don't care about the reason why. The point is that you can't stand before the Muslims.
I don't think so.
Consider yourself a principled. Oh, I'm going to police everyone on Aqidah. I'm going to police everyone on support for Iran. I'm going to say that Muhammad Hijab is a potential kafir because he says there needs to be unity with Iran. But when it comes to the UAE, I can't speak because of whatever reason. I can't condemn a genocide. I can't condemn building of Hindu temples. I can't condemn allying with Israel in the Abraham Accords. Okay, so don't just be a pragmatist. Shut your Rajit mouth and don't talk in public about politics.
Okay, so that's
simple. You can't have it both ways.
Without the pejorative, but I agree with the point, right? So the point of if you can't speak about the whole matter, then you shouldn't speak about any of the matter. If you want to start using theological arguments against one of the nations, and then just like making it very specific about, because the thing is, I think it's just to do with the fact that, I mean, the reason why Adnan got involved was because of the 12 Shia discussion, and I said that the awam of the Shia are not kuffar, and it's a fringe view to believe that they are. He was now responding to that because obviously he does not believe that on the record. He strongly believes in the contrary of that, even though like I presented many different sort of naqulat of Ibn Taymiyyah. And I don't see how anyone can believe that it's not a valid point. But the point I'm making to you is that so I think that's where it started, and then that's where it sort of. So sometimes when you're too polemical against one group, you start thinking about them all the time. You start to become obsessed with them. So it could just be that. It doesn't have to be that he's being paid by anybody. I don't think he is, because I've seen the condition that he lives in. He's not driving around in a Rolls Royce. I'm sorry to put it that way, and I hope he doesn't take offense, but he's not. Do you know what I mean? He's not that kind of a guy who's walking around in a Rolls Royce and has all the money. I said, no, he's not. So if he's getting paid by these people,
he's not going on yacht tours like Uthman bin Farouk.
He's not doing any of that stuff. I mean, honestly, you have a misconception.
In Dubai.
I live basically near him, bro. I disagree with him a lot on these issues. But it can't stop us from being fair-minded, bro.
I mean, so he's doing it for free? That's even worse. Like, he's doing it for free. He won't like stand up for his Sudanese brothers and sisters being massacred.
How's that even worse? Worse?
He's doing it for free. He's being a prostitute for free. It's worse, actually.
La, haram. This is haram. But here's what I would say. Yeah. So I mean, look, Daniel. One criticism I have of you is this. Look, I'll be honest with you. And I like being authentic because I like the work you do. I think you're a genuine asset to the Ummah. You've got a good synthesis now between the Islamic knowledge and the Harvard knowledge, or the worldly knowledge. You're producing new information for us. You've actually, one of the books we've read is about modernism and stuff, or at least some chapters of it. It's actually a knowledge production. Like Muslim skeptic, you're producing information that people don't have. And I always give credit for the stuff that you do on feminism, some of the stuff you do on feminism. Some of the stuff you do on liberalism, some of the stuff that, you know what I mean? It's actually knowledge production. It really is. However, one thing I'll say is I think sometimes when you get mad and you get wild and you get sucked into things, and I'm the same. I'm just the same as you, right? Me and you are similar temperament. Yeah. Sometimes we can become unfair and disproportionate, to put it in Piers Morgan's terms. We can become disproportionate in the way we respond. Now, I'm not saying what was done to you was not disproportionate. I actually believe it was. It was completely disproportionate. Any takfir that's been done on you, calling you a son of mut'a, how could we not condemn that? We all condemn all of that stuff. But we've got to be fair and say that actually, on the other hand, this as well, okay? And one thing I will say to you, Daniel, is look, if we're talking about uniting with Shia for a common cause, okay, no problem. But now the question would be, what about Yaqeen Institute? I mean, I'm surely it's less of a problem. I mean, now you had all this issue of Yaqeen and Amr Sulaiman. I mean, you can't tell me Amr Sulaiman is more deviant than the 12ers. I mean,
All right.
if we're
If
so
you know,
we have to be,
if
we've
Israel and the U.S. look, I'll make it very simple for you. If Israel and the U.S. like strike Yaqeen headquarters, I'm gonna stand with Yaqeen. I'm gonna stand with Yaqeen against
no, but why does it have to
Zionist
be
attack.
like that?
I have actually stood and
Yeah,
defended Omar Suleiman, Yaqeen, even Jonathan Brown. I've
really.
defended him against
Have you
Zionist
changed?
attack.
Because now your manhaj has changed, Daniel. Now you've become more of a pragmatist. Now you've become
No,
more of
it's
a
actually it's very
uniter of
principled.
people.
It's like
So
very
now,
consistent and
you know, you've
principled, actually.
it's
Because
true, but
my principle is that they're
yeah.
Muslims. I never takfired Yaqeen. I never takfired these people. Said
But
that
in the
they're wrong
beginning, you
about
started
this,
off
what they're
as sort
promoting.
of like a hardliner, right? You started off with the Salafis, and
As we
then
should. No. That has nothing to do with being Salafi, Sufi, Sunni. It has
no, I
nothing
mean
to do
like
with
okay.
that.
So
If
were you
someone,
ever,
listen, like, look, bro,
yeah,
look,
were you ever a follower of
if
Ibn
you want
Abdul
to
Wahhab?
relitigate, look, no, never, okay,
Really?
never, yeah,
Yeah,
never. I didn't have the same perspective on Ibn Abdul Wahhab in the
yeah.
past I did today. I thought that okay, this is
So
someone
when you
in
read
the
more,
18th
you
century.
started realizing.
What was that?
When did you start when did you start like okay reading more and start realizing okay actually
After October 7th. After October 7th.
okay, so this was quite a recent thing then.
Yeah, yeah. People were saying things like people were attacking Ibn Abdul Wahhab, and
Yeah.
they're saying he's this and that. I didn't pay much attention. I said, well, seems to be like liberals. You're just against like conservative
Mm,
Islam. Conservative Islam
mm,
is not limited to just Ibn Abdul Wahhab. This is something
mm,
that you can go read Imam Ghazali. Look at what
mm,
Ghazali
mhm,
says about
mm,
how you should condemn the deviations and wrongdoing and fisq.
mhm,
And look at
mhm,
these, even the so-called Sufi friendly scholars. They're very harsh.
mm,
So I was very consistent on Yaqeen, Omar Sulaiman. I still have the same position that I had in the
mm,
past. Like, if you're an organization
mm.
that is trying to get the Muslims to support a political cause, like they're actually very similar to the Wahhabis in this sense. They were
No
pushing
man,
Muslims.
no, this is
No, I mean,
come on.
take a broader perspective. Okay, look at Wahhabism is
Yeah, he's
theology
freezing.
marshaled for the support of a
Is he
political project, right? You're frozen. Uh, you just have a smile on your face, so I can still hear you, I think. Okay,
sorry,
now
can you hear me? Can you? Yeah, yeah.
I can
I
hear you.
think you're being unfair again, bro. Look, Amr Suleiman,
Let me
essentially you
explain.
and him
Let me
should have
explain the
you
position
have the same manager as him now.
then. Not at all, but I know you're just trolling. But let me just explain.
No, no. How am I trolling? You guys are, wallahi, in the
No,
sense that,
first of all,
in
Omar
the sense that
Sulaiman would
you're,
never in his life criticize Ibn Abdul Wahhab. First of all, okay, he would never do that openly. He's smarter
but
than that.
that's irrelevant.
But number two, no, number two, their political project, and you saw this very clearly. You interviewed Yasser Qadi when he was promoting Linda Sarsour and Ilhan Omar. Like, why are they pushing these individuals, like these pro-LGBT feminists, and saying Muslims need to rally behind Linda Sarsour and Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib and all the rest of them? He talked to you explicitly about this, correct? And you were sitting on the couch. And why are they promoting this? They're pushing Muslims to align politically with the left wing. And this is why they publish articles in defense of same-sex marriage, in the defense of gay rights and LGBT rights, and pushing this kind of women's empowerment feminism nonsense that was in service of a political goal within domestic Western politics, whether it's the UK with Labour or with the US with the Democrats. And they were campaigning. Omar
So
Sulaiman
let's
literally was
assume that's all
campaigning for
true,
Bernie
Daniel.
Sanders, presidential campaign, and other presidential candidates. So the connection
Let's
between
assume that's
the
all true, Daniel.
politics and a
Yeah.
theological position in support of these left-wing values, these gay rights values, it was going hand in hand. In the same way that Wahhabis push takfir of the enemies of Saudi's allies, the enemies of the Saudi-US alliance, whether that be Iran, whether that be Hezbollah or whatever, Yemen, Ansar Allah in Yemen, or whatever other groups. So it's the same thing. Theology in defense of a political program.
Yeah, but let me ask you this. Like, okay, fine.
Hey,
Let's
you're
assume
muted.
everything you said. Am I muted?
Oh, hold on.
Can you hear me?
I think sorry.
Can you hear me? Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you.
You can hear me, yeah? Yeah. So, look, in terms of, let's assume everything you just said was absolutely true. Which, I mean, this we could discuss that, but we're not going to discuss that because it's going to open up another can of worms. I agree that they went too far with this whole stuff as well, right? I think they've sort of corrected, and I will probably, honestly, as much as I didn't agree with a lot of the refutations that you put, the style of them, but to be fair, I think it actually helped change their trajectory, bro. I think the reason why they corrected was actually due to you, the pressure that you put. Maybe they don't want to admit that, but I think that's what happened. The pressure that you put on them, Gani, it calibrated the situation. I personally believe that anyway. But anyway, having said that, 5-0 Portugal beat Uzbekistan. Well, Uzbekistan was never a country too. Anyway, but bro, look, let's be honest. Let's assume everything you just said there about their political inclinations and proclivities is true, right? They still would not be more deviant from a theological perspective than 12 Shia. That's molten ijma. No one can deny it.
True, of course.
So in that sense, if we can now unify with the 12 Shia on issues that are greater, then we unifying with
absolutely never had any dispute on. And in the past, when I was criticizing, at the height of criticizing them, I would never have said. In fact, in that period, I was interviewed by the Middle East Forum. Okay,
I can hear Daniel.
Yeah, I can never.
Yeah.
Hold on. Maybe on my side it's muted. Let me just fix this. Sorry.
Oh, are you live as well then, yeah?
Yeah, I'm live as well.
That's nice. We've got double live going on. Let's see his one. Let's see.
Okay, now maybe. Hello.
Yeah. Hello. Hi.
Sorry, I mean, these are technical problems. Let me just look at this.
Yeah. Oh, can you hear?
Okay, it's good now, everyone? Okay.
Is it good on his side? Oh, yeah, I think it's good on your side now. I think the people are saying, Zishan's telling me it's good on your side now.
Okay, alhamdulillah.
So let's put this on the record then. Are you saying that you're more than happy to unify with the likes of Amr Suleiman, grant concessions to them, not be refutational of them?
No. Concessions. What do you mean concessions? I don't grant the Shia concessions. I don't grant them concessions and say, oh, well, now it's fine to follow the 12 imams and prefer that as if that's part of revelation.
No, but then someone could argue your tone towards the 12 Shia or the Iranian regime is somewhat conciliatory because of the political climate, whereas your tone with a much closer ally, in this case, Yaqeen and Amr Suleiman and those guys, is much more venomous or much more brutal. And so someone will say that if you're calling to unity and we want mainstream Islam, we've got to include these people here, because if we're talking about unity, I mean, what have they done to really be eliminated from? Because you wouldn't consider them to be mubtada now, would you? Would you consider them to be mubtada?
Some of their positions are fully deviant, you know.
Sure, but would you do tasnif of them as mubtada, complete mubtada?
I mean, taking particular individuals, I mean, that's a bigger conversation. But we have to be comparing apples to apples, because when it comes to the Shia, the Shia aren't coming to our masajid and posing as traditional Sunnis and teaching Shia doctrine. But if you look at what Yaqeen does and what these compassionate imams do, they're taking a liberal ideology of feminism, liberalism, secularism. This is the Rand agenda, by the way. This is the Rand agenda. Because Rand specifically, that's what we began with. They say we have to support the moderates because the moderates will be seen as more credible. They wear the costume. They have all the trappings of a traditional Sunni Muslim, and they go to the masajid and they teach an ideology that is favorable to us and our empire. And so it's like the enemy from within.
A lot of these guys.
This is not what the Shia are doing.
But
So
on the politics, they've been really solid. Like someone like Omar Suleiman, he's been really solid with the, for example, Palestine issue. Even the
I mean, has he called
Israelis
for
put
has look again, like
the
when it
Israelis put
comes
his name in
to,
the top 10 most biggest anti-Semites of of the country. He's been quite solid. I have to be honest. He's a Palestinian himself. I don't think I don't think his views are different to ours. Do you know what I mean? On terms of politics here, I don't think he's trying to.
well, maybe he's changed his views,
I think he's yeah. I think he's moved away from
but
the
in
left
terms
wing
of
stuff.
his previous stances, okay,
Yeah.
in terms of his previous stances, which is where I was critiquing him the most severely, is he was preaching an quote unquote American Islam.
Fair
American
enough.
Muslims need to be integrated into this establishment political program with the Democratic Party, and that's why you had figures like Linda Sarsour speaking on the highest national levels of democratic politics, and other compassionate imams along with Omar Suleiman. And that was what they were preaching. And that maybe he's seen the light, maybe he's seen and realized that that's actually something that is wrong and shouldn't be done. And in which case, great, alhamdulillah.
Yeah,
but in terms of my critique of the overarching problem of compassionate imams that goes beyond just one individual of Omar Suleiman or one organization of Yaqeen, that critique still stands. That critique still stands.
Some of your critiques were absolutely, like, in terms of especially in terms of feminism and how they've just let them overrun the country, basically. And they've appeased them a bit too much in my estimation. And apart from you on a major platform, I don't think any of Yaqeen has never refuted feminism, and that is a huge concern, bro. Like, you have the head of the snake is liberalism and feminism, right? And you got Yaqeen Institute, which have never refuted feminism, and they get a lot of funding, all right? And so how could you be promoting the conservative Islam, and then you've got the major ideologies which people essentially is challenging Islam, which is not being refuted? I agree with you, and I think you were needed at this particular time, and you filled in a fard ayn actually in your country for this thing. But like you said, now we're moving forward, I think, as an ummah together. And I've met Omar Suleiman, I've met yourself, I've met all of these people, and to be honest, I just feel like all of you are good guys. That's how I see it. I've not had. There's been a couple of them which I've met, and I'll be honest, I was very disappointed with them. Yeah, with how they carry themselves and all that, like as individuals. But in terms of
the cordiality and being nice is always there in face-to-face engagements. Like, that's why actually Donald Trump. Why do you think Donald Trump is so insistent that he wants to meet Ayatollah Khamenei face-to-face and meet with him? Because there is a certain kind of influence that you can have over people in face-to-face engagements. But the true character is proven when you have something to lose. When you have something to lose by saying something publicly, taking a stand publicly. Like, I'm sure that if you talk to some of these compassionate imams, in fact, I have had this experience. I talked to these compassionate imams privately, and before I publicly was criticizing them, I was privately talking to them, and they'll say all the right things. They'll say, yeah, Muslim women are too empowered, they're too entitled, they're causing all these problems. Yes, liberalism is an issue. Yes, Wahhabism is an issue. Some of them will say privately, but then publicly they won't actually say anything when it becomes vital to say something. It becomes vital because, let's be very real about compassionate imams and Wahhabism. They are doing significant damage to the ummah. And they have been doing it for a long time. With Wahhabis, like, if we shift back to that, like, you just go onto a program like Sneeko and you make a very basic point that if we want to survive as an ummah against this onslaught from the Zionists and the United States, we have to come together and have pan-Islamic unity, and we can still have Aqidah debates, and we insist that Shiism is bid'ah and etc. However, for political purposes, we have to come together in this existential crisis because we're about to be genocided. This is a very simple point, and you get attacked for that, ruthlessly attacked. They call you the N-word. They attack your family. They want to take you offline. They say you're potentially kafir. This is a disaster, and there are enemies, our worst enemies, who want to see our blood being spilled in the streets. They are taking advantage of this. So this is not something that we should tolerate. We should not say, oh, this is just about personal beef. This is about just two egos fighting. No, we have to now more than ever, because this Wahhabi cancer has spread so far because it's become kind of like the default. It's become the default where even Muslims who are not particularly religious or particularly well-read, as you described it before, they still have some of these intuitions that have been implanted by years of Wahhabi influence over the religious media, with their TV channels and their radio programs and their cassette tapes, etc., that they've distributed in their networks all across the globe. So they've affected the baseline religious intuitions of Sunnis, and that has to be confronted, because now we see it's untenable. Now we see that it's something that will lead to our demise. That's why I became woke to Ibn Abdul Wahhab after October 7th, because what shocked me, what really opened my eyes, was you saw these Wahhabis, someone like Shamsi going to Hyde Park and saying that we don't support the Palestinians. They deserve what they're getting because they have faulty aqidah. They worship graves. They ally with the Rafidah, and therefore they deserve to be annihilated. They deserve to be occupied until they correct their aqidah. That is what he said.
He didn't say those exact words, did he?
Not those exact words, but that is the message, not only from Shamsi, but his teacher. That is the message from Al-Albani, actually. That is the message. Al-Albani, you know his position.
I think
Al-Albani says that the Palestinians need to leave.
Right? It's what we would say the entailment of what they say rather than what they say. Them like to be fair here on this. Even though, look, I mean, I'll be honest. I've been
just Shamsi. Okay,
I've been on the receiving end of
all of these. I'm talking about this entire.
Yeah.
The entire Wahhabi network, okay? I'm not quoting any specific one verbatim. I've cited them, their videos. I'm not trying to distort their words, but this is their position, not the entailment of their position. Their actual position is that the Palestinians have faulty aqidah, and therefore this is why Allah is punishing them with oppression. And Al-Albani said that the Palestinians need to leave. The Palestinians should not resist.
Yes,
the Zionists, they have to actually leave Palestine and make hijrah. That's his position, which he was opposed for. And many of the other Salafi scholars, like this is the dirty little secret that no one has been talking about, is that many of these Salafi authorities, Wahhabi authorities, if you look historically, even as early as 2005, like Fawzan, the whole don't boycott Israel, like boycotting Israel is haram. Where does someone like Rabbi Ferris get that from? That's coming from Fawzan. Fawzan was the one who had this position that you cannot boycott Israel, and he uses the justification that the Muslims weren't actually boycotting.
Did he mention
Jews
Israel?
Of Medina.
Did he mention specifically Israel? I don't think he mentioned Israel though.
He's responding to the calls for boycott. BDS,
yeah, maybe in a general sense. But I doubt he mentioned Israel. But I'll be honest. I used to follow these scholars, right? I used to follow a lot of these scholars. What happened with me is I agree with your sort of sentiment of disillusionment with a lot of them, right? And the reason why is because of the following. I mean, I remember very clearly, very, very clearly. I was probably in my mid to late 20s, and I used to follow Sheikh Salah al-Fawzan in my early 20s. I used to follow him. I've got his Sharh of Zayd al-Mustaqna at home. He's actually got a very good Sharh of Zayd al-Mustaqna. It's nice, it's easy to read, and his fatwas on Hanbali fiqh were not bad. However, I started realizing a couple of things. I used to watch his fatwa programs every day, every other day, right? And there was a point where I just kind of, I'll be honest, became disillusioned. And I'll tell you what happened. The point was, and it was to do with the politics, unfortunately, right? What happened was this. I watched one of his fatwas, and it was at the height of what was going on in Syria at the time. And people know that, at that time, brothers, the Syria thing was as big as the Palestine thing. We were all so emotionally invested in it, especially in West London. The Syrian people were getting massacred. We saw it. I had friends of mine who actually went and joined the Takfiri groups and died in Syria. So there was a lot of commotion in the area, like in West London, etc. So I used to follow Sheikh Salah al-Fawzan. And in the height of the Syrian situation, someone asked him a question. And his answer made me change my whole opinion of him. Okay. And I will remember, wallahi, I remember exactly this point. And then the second point, I decided that he's not independent, basically. That was my decision. And then it was actually, I'll be honest, it was a transformative moment for me. The first time was they asked him about Bashar al-Assad. Now, Bashar al-Assad is Alawi, right? So even the Shiites would make takfir. They would make excommunication of Alawi, like Bashar al-Assad. They asked him about Bashar al-Assad. Can we make takfir of him? And then Salah al-Fawzan, Sheikh Saleh, he said, we can't make takfir of. Takfir is a big matter. We can't talk about takfir this easily, etc., blah, blah, blah. Now, I had a bit of I swear to God, and I'm not just making this up, wallahi. As I heard him say that, and I'm seeing people get, killed in Syria and stuff, and, whatever, I had something in my heart that was like almost a shock. Do you know when you're told something from someone like, is he actually saying this? Then I said, maybe maybe it's just I'm misinterpreting it. Maybe there's some wisdom in what he was saying. I was making an excuse for him in my mind. Then he was asked about Yemen, bro. Okay. He was asked about Yemen and the Houthis. And then he says, هؤلاء الذين. I remember actually exactly what he said by word. He says, هؤلاء الذين يدعون الإسلام. When he started speaking about the Houthis, who are Zaydis, right? He said, these people who claim to be Muslim. So wait, the Zaydis who are actually way closer to Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Essentially, you might as well call them disbelievers, all right? But then, but then Bashar al-Assad, no, the matters become convoluted. So the point I'm making is that, to be honest with you, bro, I started to realize that they're not independent, and it was a harsh realization for me. And then, because if they're not independent, then why do I need to follow that then? I have to now start looking myself at the evidences or going to other scholars and seeing other people from all over the world. And that's when I started to look at Sa'id al-Kamli, for example, in Morocco, or Ad-Dado, Shanqiti, for example, in Mauritania. And I started to grow a greater affinity to those scholars because I found that they were speaking, especially in the case of Ad-Dado, they were speaking more truth, and they seemed to not care as much. That was it. They seemed to be more independent, and their knowledge was as good, if not better. And I personally believe it is, sorry to say, much better in terms of certain memorization and stuff like that. So that's it. That's how I transitioned. I mean, in terms of that. But some people will be very upset with this, and I understand where you're coming from. But the fact is, I'm be honest, that's my authentic position. This is something I determined by myself before probably I even became famous. This is something I, determined by myself, and that's what I believe. And so I agree with the sentiment, bro, that the present day scholars, a lot of them, but I have to also say some of them are very good, and some of them I've met their family members, and I find that they are sincere. So, for example, Sheikh Salah al-Munajjid, Sheikh Salah al-Munajjid, who is the mushrif of Islam Q&A. I believe
he's in jail.
I believe this man is sincere. I respect this man. I might not agree with the way he does fiqh and whatever and all that stuff. Wallahi, I respect this man. And he's because of mawaqif. What mawaqif? For example, his son, someone killed his son. I don't know if you know about this situation. Someone killed his son in Saudi Arabia. His own blood son. And guess what he done? He forgave him. He could have gotten him executed as well, but he exercised that forgiveness thing. This shows you, a man of character. And when it came to the Syrian situation, he didn't care about anybody. He was on the TV. I have so much respect for him. So someone like these people, I'm not trying to brand everybody the same, but if you lose your independence, like Aid al-Qadni, for example, who had to basically come on the TV groveling and apologizing, I can't respect this, brother. I can't respect these kind of group of scholars. I'm sorry to say, if you're being controlled by politics, I can't. You want me to follow that? Why should I? This is the question. Why should we? Why should I tell my family members to follow a man who's not independent, or men who are not independent, who are basically beholden to state interests? I have no reason to be beholden to any state interest. So that's number one. So that's how I transitioned. I transitioned to this, still Athari, everything, but at the same time now I realized fiqh is much more wide. I used to think fiqh was about Islam Q&A, when I wanted to know a definitive answer to a fiqh question, what I used to do in the past was go on Islam Q&A. And wallahi, I used to think Islam was what Islam Q&A said, until I started studying elsewhere. And I thought, subhanAllah, these guys, these Malikis here have different perspective, and they are and they're providing evidence, bro. These Hanafis over here, wait a minute, let me hear what they actually have to say. Wallah, let me hear what their evidence is. Even on issues where there's, I'll be honest, even on issues where there's like big difference of opinion, let me hear what they have to say on it. Especially on issues where there's big difference of opinion, where the Hanafis will make life easier for us. Let's hear what they have to say. But no, honestly, I started listening everywhere. And I started like, Islam is much more wide than I initially thought that it was. It has Islam is not Islam Q&A, bro. You know what I mean? It's Islam Q&A. Islam is not. And I met the people who write Islam Q&A, and they were telling me they're surprised at the amount of people that follow it and that think it's the definitive statement. And even we've had communications with them on, like, you know, some of their fatwas, and like I've met the families of all these mashayikh and stuff like that. And by the way, all these major mashayikh, I've sat and met most of them, the Saudi ones. I've sat and spoke to them. I have some recordings. I've never told anyone this. I had conversations, wallahi, yeah. But the point I'm making is I've come to a conclusion that they're just, some of them are not independent. The ones who are independent, we don't hear their voices as much, but they're not independent. So I can't follow somebody like that. However, having said that, Akhi, I'm not going to lie to you as well, because, you know, I do love all the Muslims, and I love your work, and I love you as an individual, right? I think you're an excellent asset to the Ummah. I've been on Twitter for 2 weeks, Akhi, going back and forth with the Arab nationalists and the racists. I've never been, I can say this to you, bro. I've never been as disappointed in my life in any community than that. Because wallahi, I was shocked that they can come out with the racism like that. And I know there's a connection between a Dawat al-Najdiyya and nationalism. I'm assured of it. I know that if a scholar in Saudi Arabia had the same view that me and Daniel just had and espoused, and said this is the dominant historical view in the East and the West, if they espoused it, they'd be written off by a lot of the communities. Even someone like Hatim al-Auni can't come out and speak like that. And he's very critical of so many different positions. He can't come out and say that. He can't speak about Ibn Abdul Wahhab. He can't do it. You know, so it's a nash. That's why you will not find scholars doing it. There's a tribal element, there's a cultural element, and so on and so forth, Akhi. But having said this, what I will say is, one question I have for you is this. So one of the main refutations you've done on Amr Sulaiman, yeah, going back to this point, is when he did that libation thing on the floor, blah blah blah, and you said he was doing shirk and blah blah blah. He needs to come out. Okay, but now your views on shirk seem to have become more lenient and changed, if I might be honest with you and tell you that, right? So, for example, I don't know if you were defending him, but there was this guy that was like an extremist, essentially, extreme Sufist. He was, I don't know what he was saying, that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam basically can control the atoms of the creation, and this. Did you see this? He was saying that he can create another universe or something. I don't know what he was saying, something like this. He can hear everything, he knows everything. I don't know what to make. Either he's mentally ill or that he's not a Muslim. Sorry to say, this is beyond the pale, bro. This is the kind of thing that's too much, bro. So you were kind of giving him courtesy, and I was thinking, okay, well, if you're giving this guy courtesy here, bro,
you're talking about Sheikh Yasser Hanafi?
Yeah, of course I know. No, I'm not talking about Hanafi. I'm not talking about Yasser Hanafi.
No, I'm talking about, is like that the clip you're talking about?
I'm talking about a guy who's speaking in Arabic, yeah, and he had like a guy that was translating for him. Do you get it? He had a guy that was translating. I think he might have been Mauritanian. He was wearing a Mauritanian garments. I don't know if we can find this. And he was saying that
you're talking about Sheikh Salek. Sheikh Salek.
This guy was saying that the Prophet Muhammad can create the atoms, or he can do this and he can hear that. And bro, the stuff he was saying was extreme on anybody's estimation. And if we're gonna pardon Amr Sulaiman for libation, throwing water on the floor, and I agree, he shouldn't have done that, and I totally agree. But that's way worse, Akhi. There's no comparison between this one and that one.
Yeah, so Sheikh Salek, I mean, this is what the Wahhabis will mention, but the position that he was talking about is a respected position, the Shafi school. He was expressing the Shafi position on the kind of fadl that has been given to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam from Allah.
Let's bring what he said. Can we bring what he said? Have you got his video? Because Akhi, this guy did not say nothing Shafi'i, bro. This guy's here.
Did you see the statements? Like, we can bring the statements of the Shafi'i scholars. I mean, I did an entire long video on this about the statements like of Subki, Ibn Hajar al-Haytami, Imam Suyuti, where they say that the Prophet ﷺ owns the entire universe and can do with it as he wishes. This is a statement of Suyuti. Statement of Suyuti. This is a statement of Ibn Hajar al-Haytami.
He owns the universe.
No.
Okay,
we can bring up the statements. Let's bring them up.
We have to bring out the statement.
Let's bring up so that you can say.
He owns it. No, but let's assume, like, what are we talking about here? Are we saying that?
Yeah, we'll bring it up. We'll bring up
the qawl, or should we bring about what this guy said first? What this guy said.
Let's bring out. Let me pull up the. Hold on.
The Prophet ﷺ is the owner of the universe. So who's the owner? Allah or the Prophet? Which one is it? Do you know what I mean? Even if Subki said that, I'd reject it, Akhi. What's this? Did you know what I mean? Like, that's too much, Akhi.
No, but they're talking about the fadl. They're talking about the fadl that has been granted to the Prophet ﷺ. This is similar to what Brailvis believe. Like, the Brailvis also have this kind of belief. Like, this is found amongst, some of the Sunni schools and some of the scholars of.
So wait, let's get your belief on the table on it. What are we talking about here? Because I don't. Maybe we disagree here. So I don't know if we agree or disagree. So what's your view on this?
Right, I think so. If you believe that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam controls the universe in its entirety and can create another universe, even if it's dependent on power that Allah has given him, I think that's shirk. Like that's shirk. Yeah. But just because someone has that position doesn't make them a mushrik. I think that this is something wrong. If someone starts teaching this, if someone starts saying that this is something that acceptable, let me understand the I would disagree with that.
Wait. Let's be frank. Are we saying that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he owns the universe in the same way that Allah owns it, or a different way?
No, different. Allah is, because his ownership is dependent on Allah granting him that ownership.
Okay, but there's an issue here still, Daniel, which is the following, right? So if we say for the
there's many issues. I agree. This is not my view. Okay, so this is where a lot of people get confused. They say just because I'm describing the views of others, they think that that's my view, or I think that it's acceptable.
Do you think
I'm being an academic?
View?
So listen, like, I'm being an academic and I'm being honest. This is what the Wahhabis don't do. The Wahhabis want to take out clips of like Sheikh Salik saying something or some other opponent that they have, or you even. They take one of your statements and they clip it out of context. And I want to say that, well, this statement that has been made, this actually has a basis in the Islamic tradition, in the sense that there are other authoritative scholars like Subki, Suyuti, Ibn Hajar al-Haytami, who have said this, who have made statements like this that are controversial. And therefore, while we may not accept that statement or think that it's acceptable, we might even think that it is bid'ah, or even we might think that it is kufr, it is still there. So this is an academic description of the Islamic tradition. That doesn't mean that's my personal position. So Sheikh Salik is not my sheikh.
Yeah, of course.
Sheikh Yasser Hanafi also is not my sheikh, but I highly respect him as well.
Yeah, of course. Now, there's a big difference between Yasser Hanafi on the one hand and this guy. I promise you, what he was saying, I don't know if you reposted him. Yeah, you did actually. So what he was saying was very, very severe, bro. I mean, if a child heard what he was saying, they would think that he's describing Allah. They would not think that he was describing the Prophet Muhammad, bro. He's saying that he owns the universe, he this and that, and blah blah blah. Akhi, it's way too much. Just like it's this is and this is where I disagree with even the criticism of, like, some people say istighatha, the reason why there's shirk is istiqlaliyah. I don't believe that that's the only reason. So, for example, look, if someone believes in the following, if someone says the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam can hear in the same way that Allah can hear, he has the same level of hearing, but that he's dependent on him. For me, that's not only it's illogical, but it's a form of shirk as well. Yes, because it's the same as saying, okay, can Allah create another God? Essentially, can Allah create a God like him? No, he can't. So let's say, can Allah create an entity which is also all powerful, also all knowing, also all hearing, and let's say like 5 attributes, right? But it's the same as Allah's taswiyah. It's exactly the same as Allah's attributes. But they happen to be, that entity happens to be dependent on Allah. I would say, first of all, this is a contradiction in terms, because that entity cannot exist. It's like a squared circle. But also, I would say that that's, now we are dealing with shirk, because you're doing taswiyah. You're essentially saying that this person has the same level of knowledge or the same level of power as Allah. Then you're saying they're the same. At that point, you don't need to say anything else. You're saying that Allah can hear 100%, the Prophet ﷺ can hear 100%. Even though one is giving this, like it's a form of Trinitarianism. It's the same thing. They say that, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Yeah, one of them is begotten from the. It's the same sort of thing. Akhi. We cannot accept that. Do you know what I mean? Even if someone brought some aqwal here and there, even if Subki said something, which I doubt he said this. I mean, I doubt he said that the taswiyah and this Allah can hear, the Prophet can hear the same as Allah. I doubt he said it. I know he was obviously going back and forth with Ibn Taymiyyah on istighatha, and he disagreed with Ibn Taymiyyah on istighatha. I know obviously As-Suyuti made a case for istighatha. Yeah, and I know that.
Look, I mean, this is what I had a debate on, like the debate that I had with Jake. Okay, this was earlier this year. You will find like these positions. Okay, I know, I accept what you're saying. I completely agree that we shouldn't accept this. Like, this is an extreme belief. They have their argumentation for it. They say, no, it's not the same, because we don't think that the Prophet ﷺ is independent. He is dependent on Allah for this power that we believe that he has, that he can manage the universe and he can even create, etc. Okay, I don't find that compelling. I don't think that is acceptable belief to have. And I will go as far as to say that this is actually shirk. Like, this is a shirk belief. This is going too far, and it falls into shirk. And I've been very consistent in pointing this out. Yeah. However, does that mean that we do takfir of this individual? Well, if we're going to do takfir of this individual, we have to make takfir of the Brailvis. We have to make takfir of Subki. We have to takfir Suyuti. And then furthermore, some of the scholars that they promote also have kufr beliefs. So Ibn Taymiyyah, for example, believe that it's permissible to believe that hell is not eternal. The fire, the nar, is not eternal, that it will come to an end. It's acceptable to believe that as a Muslim, in contradiction to the Quran. And many scholars within the time of Ibn Taymiyyah and thereafter said that this is kufr. Like, Ibn Taymiyyah is advocating for kufr. He is advocating and saying that it's acceptable to believe that the hellfire will come to an end. It's not eternal. That's one. Another belief of Ibn Taymiyyah, that creation has always existed. The creation has always existed, and it didn't have a beginning point. It has always been created and recreated constantly, continuously, but there was never a beginning point. It has always existed in the past, and it will always exist into the future. That's also Ibn Taymiyyah's belief. That again,
he doesn't believe that it was one universe, though. He believed that he kept creating perpetually into the
right. But some creation existed continuously. There wasn't a beginning point. This is another belief.
No, not that one creation existed. That he believed that Allah created
some creation, not the same, has existed perpetually. This is also considered kufr by many scholars. One could say the majority. And then the other belief, he also says that the Prophet ﷺ committed shirk, or uttered shirk, rather. He uttered shirk. Qissat al-Qaraniq, if you know the story of the cranes and that whole narration.
Well, I think he makes a life of that.
He accepts it. He accepts the narration. The Sunni scholars say, the other Sunni scholars say that this is either fabricated or is very weak. But Ibn Taymiyyah says that no, this is something that actually took place. And so this is a big thing to say, that the Prophet ﷺ uttered shirk. This is a very big claim to make that Ibn Taymiyyah makes. I don't think it's acceptable to accuse the Prophet.
Well, let's deal with each one of them at a time. So definitely, I do believe that he believed that the hellfire runs out. Yeah, that's fana'un nar. And some people will deny that, but that's definitely in the Majmu'at al-Fatawa, and it's also in what's his name, Ibn al-Qayyim's books as well. He has a whole chapter on it in Shifa al-Alil, which is one of his compendious, like, magnum opus works. And interestingly enough, Albani refutes him, refutes Ibn al-Qayyim.
Harshly refutes Ibn Taymiyyah. And
he refutes both, but yeah, Ibn al-Qayyim has like a whole chapter on it, and Albani is coming at it more from, he's like coming more from a scriptural perspective. He's attacking the hadith. He's saying that this is not the hadith. He's relying upon our weak, etc. He's coming more like that, less than a mantiq sort of perspective. But I mean, to be fair to Ibn Taymiyyah here, right? Ibn Taymiyyah, you can still give him udhr. Why? Because he actually, when he was explaining, I don't know if you ever saw his explanations for Fana'un Nar, right? He was giving some precedent. Okay, now I'm not saying I agree with his qawl. Obviously, I don't, right? And nor do I agree with the other qawl of the hawadith la. It's called hawadith la awla. There's creations into the past perpetually, right? I don't agree with either of those for scriptural reasons. But Fana'un Nar, like for example, you know in Surah An-Naba where Allah says, "Labithina fiha ahqaba," that they will stay in the ahqab, for ahqab. A lot of the Salaf scholars, and if you look at like some of the really old school tafsir, even Tabari mentions some of them, Muqatil ibn Sulaiman, all these kind of old school scholars, they say ahqab is for like epochs, right? So they're giving an indication. Some of them do give the indication that, okay, well, there's going to be an end point. So he makes 2 or 3 different arguments. One of them is a scriptural argument, and he uses the Salaf actually, and these tafsir and these kind of things. Another one is that he uses a mantiq based sort of argument. He says that Allah says that kataba ala nafsi al-rahma, that he's written mercy upon himself, and therefore if his mercy is going to overpower his ghadab, all right, then that eventually means the hellfire has to run out. So he actually makes a couple of good arguments and interesting arguments, even though I disagree with what he's saying, or I disagree with the position. It's not as like kufri as people. He's got lots of different evidence adillah. The one about that, honestly, I think you may be mistaken about the satanic verses thing. I may be as well. I'll double check it, but I think that you may be mistaken, because I think he rejected that. But
he accepted it. I mean, that's one of the controversial things about Ibn Taymiyyah, is that he accepted it.
We'll look at it.
I mean, you can double check it, but
But yeah, so
the point is though that he has these beliefs that other scholars, you could say, in some cases unanimously considered to be kufr.
Therefore, that's the excuse making. But what I'll say to you, Daniel, is that if that's true, then if this guy Sheikh Salih's coming out, you just said now that he's saying things which amount to kufr or shirk, right? No problem. So then Amr Sulaiman,
if it's interpreted, I didn't say that he said things that in a certain interpretation, because it wasn't clear. Like from the clip that the Wahhabis were publicizing, like he makes a statement about the control of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that the tasarruf fil kawn, okay, tasarruf fil kawn, this tasrif al kawn, which you can translate it as management of the universe or control of the universe. There's different ways to translate tasarruf. But depending on how you interpret it, it could be, shirk, like pure shirk, or it could be something that is like mainstream Sunnism. Because if tasarruf just means that the Prophet ﷺ has mu'jizat,
of course,
then everyone agrees with that. Or if you say that the Prophet ﷺ, Allah has granted him certain barakah, that he can exercise certain things that normal people can't, then that's mainstream Sunnism. That's in the Quran, that's in Hadith. No one rejects that. So tasarruf, it all falls down on the interpretation. Now, these Wahhabis, they take the most uncharitable reading of his statements, and they say this is clear-cut shirk, and they distribute this clip in order tasarruf fil kawn. This concept of tasarruf. This Sheikh Salih.
Oh, okay.
They mass distribute this clip.
No, but the video that I saw seemed really over the top, man. He was like, it's almost as if he was trying to say that. If you heard him, you'd think he's speaking about Jesus Christ.
I'm not sure what clip that you're referring to.
I don't know if we can get this clip, Mahi. Well, we bring this clip. he's saying يعني too much stuff, أخي.
I mean, the kinds of thing that he is saying, okay, is similar to what Suyuti said. Suyuti said that he gives narrations actually of karamat, like certain miraculous things that took place. He says that there was like certain men who were going on Hajj, for example, and they were traveling and they were hungry and they couldn't find any food. And so they went and took a nap. He went and slept somewhere. And then in his dream, he saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam bringing him food. Bringing him bread, actually. And then when he woke up, he had the bread and he was able to eat it and he was able to satisfy himself. Like this kind of karamat of the Prophet ﷺ being able to come out of the grave, for example, or to do these miraculous things on the basis of his favor. So you find statements like this, and that's what they're referring to when they say tasarruf, when they say...
Yeah, absolutely. And that is something Molten Ijma', like, obviously everybody believes the miracles of the prophets, and like I have tasarruf right now.
Even Ibn Taymiyyah actually, this is Iqtida Sirat al-Mustaqim, which you've referred to as well, where he talks about those who go to the graves of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam or awliya even, and they make requests. They make requests of the people in the qubur, and those requests are granted.
He didn't consider it to be shirk. It's true.
But he believed that it's something that can be granted. He believes that they have the power, that these people in the graves, the awliya and the anbiya, they actually have power to grant these things.
Not by themselves, right? So obviously, if they believe that these awliya are transmitting that information to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through some kind of intermediary, as intermediaries, rather than them themselves, like, I think that, Iqtidat Salat al-Mustaqim, he makes the argument it's bid'ah. I don't think he ever goes as far as to say shirk, which is another difference between Ibn Taymiyyah and the general Dawah Najdiyah. So the reason why I'm bringing all of this to your attention is just to show that, all right, so we're granting a lot of concessions to some people, but then we have to entertain the idea that maybe then there is some personal grudges that we may have, and because if we're now trying to unify the ummah together, and we're saying that we want mainstream Islam, the free Sunnis want to come together, the centrist Sunnis, whatever you want to call us, mainstream, conservative, orthodox, any word you want to use, right? Mainstream, because we're trying to bring everybody, right? What we're trying to do, because people don't know what we're calling to. What we are calling to is removing the fringes, which I don't know if you would agree with this. The ones who are extreme takfiri, you do find extreme Sufis as well. Someone who like a peer who thinks he's the bee's knees or something like that, and you have to follow him and you have to give them bay'ah and all these kind of things. And if you don't, then he starts mocking you, or that they have beliefs that are actually extreme as well. Like there are beliefs everywhere that are extreme. All of those have to be alienated, and we have to come to the middle in the center ground. And to be honest, I think on my side of things, on my part of things, because me and you have refuted feminism as well, we have to be careful on the gender issues also. Like we have to be careful not to alienate women. I believe that that's something I've learned recently, because we don't want to alienate anybody now. I think we need to get a broad net of Muslims accepting and making, seeing Islam as an easy thing to follow. In the deen yusr. ولا يشاد الدين أحد إلا غلبه, that the deen, the religion, is ease, and no one makes the religion hard for them except that it overwhelms them. There are things like that. So we want to make Islam comprehensive, easy for people. We want to make it a lot of people from all the different backgrounds find it easy. Black people, white people, Arabs, non-Arabs, men, women, everybody. And I think that because me and you refute feminism, people think that we're anti-women or something, right? And this couldn't be far away from the truth. In fact, we're saying to women, we're trying to say to them that feminism is something that will destroy your life. The reason why we're refuting feminism is because we love you. We want you to be part of the ummah.
No, we're refuting feminism I refute feminism not for the benefit of women. Okay, that's part of the story, but it's one part. The bigger part is that feminism destroys society. It destroys the human race. Yeah. You have a birth rate collapse in Muslim countries, and you have the destruction of marriages, destruction of family. This is a collapse of Muslim society. If you don't have stable Muslim families, how can you have, you know, a strong Muslim polity? How can you have strong Muslim resistance against genocide and imperialism? So feminism is actually extremely destructive to the entire ummah, to the human race. It's an anti-human ideology, and it has to be refuted. Like, so I agree with you that we need to have a kind of broad net, and we welcome everyone, but we're not going to compromise. Okay, we're not going to compromise on core Islamic beliefs. So what are core Islamic beliefs? And of course, we have the 6 pillars of Iman. That is something that can't be compromised. And there are certain values that can't be compromised. Like, no one can come and say, contrary to everything that the Quran and the Sunnah teaches, that patriarchy has no place in Islam, or patriarchy is shirk, for example, which the feminists do. Or come and say that, oh, we have to have secularism in Muslim societies, and we have to, okay, if you're going to come with that kind of deviation from the Quran and Sunnah and the Islamic tradition, we're going to refute that.
And how you're defining patriarchy as like in the linguistic sense of like a man being in charge of a household. That's how you're defining it.
Man being in charge of a household, his community, society, a nation, the ummah, like men are in charge.
I agree that obviously that, you know, that's what we do, but the only thing with the use of the word patriarchy, which is why I don't like to use it myself personally, right, especially when I'm treating feminism, is that they associate it with oppression. It's sort of like, you know, when you use the word slavery in the Western context, they associate it with racism, like as a connotation. And so if we say, okay, we believe in patriarchy, it's almost as if we're saying, a lot of these people misinterpret it as if we're saying we believe in oppression, right? So, I mean, I learned these things on the way, but even like saying Nejdi, I've had to be careful of saying that now, because these people think when I say the word Nejdi,
just say Wahhabi, bro. Just say Wahhabi.
The thing is, it's Allah's name. There's lots of, I don't want to associate it with Allah's name, Al-Wahhab. You know, it's almost a praise it. Yani. But the thing is, I'll say
Israel, like Israel is the name of a prophet. We still are cursing Israel, like the country. Like, terms have meanings, like beyond what.
And I'll tell you something else about that as well. I'll be honest, right? When I used to be a neo-Salafi, when I used to, as I said, listen to Al-Fawzan and these kind of scholars and take knowledge from them and all that kind of stuff. If anyone used the word Wahhabi, I would just ignore them. That's how I think. It would just
this is like Nejdi is not doing anything different. Like they also will ignore you if you say Nejdi. Nejdi is not less pejorative. It just adds the baggage of now you have to keep giving a disclaimer of, oh, I don't mean everyone in Nejd. Like, that's like every time you say Nejdi, you have to give the caveat. True, you have to just the disclaimer. So just say Wahhabi, bro. It just that's their term for themselves. That's the term for themselves. They called themselves the Wahhabiyun. Al-Wahhabiyun was their preferred term.
Honestly, when I don't know if you ever went through a neo-Salafi phase, right? But proper neo-Salafi phase. And I used to follow these scholars. And as I said, if someone like from the outside said the word Wahhabi, I would take offense to it. So because I have that background, like, I don't know, did you used to take offense? If someone called you Wahhabi 5-10 years ago, would you take offense? What do you think of them?
I'd roll my eyes because they're just calling me Wahhabi because I am promoting conservative Islamic positions.
Yeah, if you heard someone like me or you talk about Wahhabism, right?
I just roll my eyes if it were.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I'll tell you. Look, I'll give you my background. I'll give you my background. You know, my connection to this this strain, you want to say. So I studied Hanbali fiqh and usul al-fiqh. Okay, I studied Zad al-Mustaqni. I went through, Ibadah and things like that. I studied Hanbali fiqh, and I also really liked the philosophy of language that Ibn Taymiyyah proposed. It was like intellectually very interesting to me, his philosophy of language and how he approached the question of the proof for God's existence, and the critiques that he had of kalam, because I was also studying philosophy at the time at undergraduate and then graduate school. And in philosophy, like the Western philosophy programs, especially analytic philosophy, you study ordinary language, what's called ordinary language philosophy. It's associated with figures like mainly Ludwig Wittgenstein.
Yeah, Wittgenstein, and then he redone his theory the second time round and stuff like that.
Right. So what's very interesting about this ordinary language philosophy of Wittgenstein and others is that they say that language.
What's his main book?
The Tractatus was his early philosophy, and then his second work or his second strand was philosophical investigations. So in Tractatus, what he's trying to do initially, what Wittgenstein tries to do initially, is he wants to conceptualize all of logic and philosophy in terms of like set theory and standard propositional logic. That's his goal. Because once we make language almost like mathematics, then every philosophical problem we can solve, because it'll just be like solving equations. Yes. And that's the kind of positivist view of language that emerged in the end of the 19th, early 20th century, associated with Wittgenstein, but also like Alfred Whitehead and Bertrand Russell, etc.
Yeah.
So then
what's the school called? Not positivist school. The something school. Together they were called something, right?
I think they were the logical positivists.
Yeah, positivism. Yeah.
Yeah. So what Wittgenstein realized is that he was a part of it. His book Tractatus was a part of it. He was trying to do this, but then he came to a realization that actually it's impossible. You cannot put language in terms of set theory, in terms of mathematics, because there's always going to be things that you cannot express in terms of set theory. Then on this basis, he refutes positivism basically. But this kind of insight about the limits of language and how language itself can become an obstacle to further understanding.
You're talking about Wittgenstein, because AJ Ayer had a similar journey, I think. Is that he moved from positivism and then realizing it's an untenable notion. This was like in the 20s and 30s, right? That's when all of this.
So this view, it has a lot of consonance with what Ibn Taymiyyah says, actually, because Ibn Taymiyyah says that the categories of Greek logic, it might seem like you're able to do a lot and come to a great deal of understanding by using these categories and making these kinds of arguments. But at a certain point, at a certain level of abstraction, your abstraction and these terminologies, these categories become an obstacle to your further understanding. And that actually starts obscuring the issue. And so you might think that you're coming to more certain knowledge of Allah by using the kalam cosmological argument or the contingency argument. But actually, no, you're getting further and further away from understanding Allah. And this is the critique you know of. Because he, as you've pointed out, Ibn Taymiyyah didn't say that therefore the contingency argument becomes haram. He didn't say that. He said that it can still be used. There are still certain situations where someone is really, something needs to help them accept Allah, that we can use the contingency argument. However, the contingency argument is not going to get you closer to certainty in Allah as He is. Allah as revealed in the Quran and Sunnah, because you have to accept certain ideas regarding independence, necessity, etc., that conflict with the revelation. And this is his whole debate between aql and naql, and what comes first, what is prior, what is more fundamental. Is it aql or is it naql? Is it reason or is it revelation? And he had the entire his magnum opus on this that you've covered in your video.
I didn't know that you were interested in this line of this kind of stuff as well. You know,
I mean, this was my attraction to Ibn Taymiyyah. This was my attraction to the Hanbali school, and I still have a lot of respect. And I think, even though I don't agree with a lot
was there ever a time where you were Salafi and then you became non-Salafi? Or was there a transition? Like, are you Athari? And what's your thing?
Yeah, I always say that I'm Athari, and I say, look, I explain it. I've been consistently explaining this. I never accepted Salafism in the sense of rejection of the madhahib. like rejecting a madhab. And I
Yeah,
always
yeah,
saw that
yeah,
as
yeah.
foolish. Like, it doesn't really make sense. How can you reject the
Yeah.
madhab? Because
Because
you're
they're bringing up
rejecting,
their own sort of madhabs.
yeah, you're bringing up your own madhab, except it's the madhab of like Fawzan instead of the madhab of
Exactly.
Shafi or
Yeah.
Imam Ahmed.
Fawzan was closer to Hanbalism. To be fair, Albani is the one who really, made his own ijtihadat and had his own madhab essentially.
Yeah, I never found that compelling. But in terms of Ibn Taymiyyah's approach, like his critique of the use of Greek logic and saying, well, there's been too much movement into accepting these categories within Kalam. I thought there was some, he had a point there. Also, some of these practices when it comes to the graves, some of these practices when it comes to istighatha, I still think that he has a very valid point.
Yeah, he does.
What he's looking at is the trajectory, like where things are going. It's becoming very bad, and someone has to make a categorical statement. So even though I don't necessarily agree with his entire analysis, I think that some of his interlocutors had better
see, this is a good point, Nandio, because what it is, Akhi, is a lot of people will confuse ta'sil al-hukm and tanzil al-hukm, right? So ta'sil is the abstraction of the ruling, and tanzil is the implementation of the ruling, right? Now, you can have whatever abstract belief you want to have about istighatha, right? I think the bigger question, and they've had so many istighatha debates and all this kind of stuff, the bigger question is not in the abstraction. I think the bigger question is actually in the tanzil, is actually in the implementation. Because I have been around the Muslim world, and wallahi, I ask people that performed a lot of this stuff, and I say, what do you mean, but what do you think of this? And I'm surprised and shocked that a lot of them do believe that the Prophet has intrinsic powers that he can give them. Okay. Now, on anyone's analysis, that is shirk, on anyone's analysis. So the fact is, because a lot of it is the Sufis who don't like Ibn Taymiyyah and they don't like the Atharis and they don't like this, that, and the other, they are reactionary towards it to a point where they blur the lines now. So we don't know what you're endorsing. You're not endorsing someone going to the grave and basically asking the Prophet, and you can think he hears you, and then he thinks that information is going to go to Allah. This guy now, this layman in one of these subcontinental areas or in North Africa and anywhere it may be, I met one Moroccan guy. Wallahi, I'll never forget. And I said, after I met this guy, and I asked him, what do you think when you're doing this? He said, I believe that the Prophet himself, and he told me clearly, and I had to make sure that he was saying the right thing, that he himself can grant me this X, Y, and Z. He said he can do it himself. So when I realized that, akhi, that has to be tackled as well. That is a problem. If on anyone's analysis, that's shirk. Anyone's analysis. A Subki will tell you that's shirk. A Suyuti will tell you that's shirk. Ibn Taymiyyah will tell you that's shirk. If that is shirk by ijma'. And so that is an issue.
I would take Ibn Taymiyyah's approach to this. Like, I would take Ibn Taymiyyah's approach, which is to say that, look, there are people who are suffering from ignorance. They need to be educated. They need to be, shown the evidences that this is something unacceptable to believe, that this is shirk. And but we don't do takfir of that person, let alone say that, all of Morocco is a mushrik nation, nation. We have to do jihad against them to bring them tawheed. Like, that's the difference between Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn Abdul Wahhab. So I'm 100% in agreement that Ibn Taymiyyah was responding to something that was a real need of the time. And even in the time of Ibn Abdul Wahhab, I'll even concede this much, even in the time of Ibn Abdul Wahhab in the 18th century, there were extreme practices, and that those need to be corrected. And there were many revivalists who were correcting these things in their own context. Even Sulaiman ibn Abdul Wahhab, even the brother of Ibn Abdul Wahhab, was against these practices.
Like the divination of trees.
Yeah, they were against this.
Some of them didn't believe in akhirah.
They didn't do mass takfir. That's the difference. They solved the problem without mass takfir, without declaring jihad, without taking women and children as slaves and war booty. And so this is a very clear distinction that we have to make between Ibn Taymiyyah and just the Hanbali tradition in general, and Wahhabis. Like, Wahhabis are a deviant movement, and they have to be, like, their poison has been affected. Like, in the past, I would think, even with the Madkhalis, like, you might have thought in the past that I was some kind of a Madkhali too. In fact, I had no like connection. I wasn't studying their material. I wasn't even under your definition, like what you were doing, like going to Islam Q&A and thinking that that's what Islam is. I never had that perception because even from my undergraduate years, I was reading fiqh and I was studying fiqh and I was studying with people of different persuasions. I had an Ash'ari Aqidah teacher that I studied with and one that was more on the Salafi side. And so I had a variety. I always had that. And I always believed in pan-Islamic unity. However, you know, when I see that people are with October 7th, and I see that, look, they are now doing takfir of the Palestinians, or they're saying that we should leave the Palestinians because they don't have the right aqidah. And anyone who calls for pan-Islamic unity is also a Rafidi, is also a deviant, and is a mushrik. They're calling me a mushrik. Then this, you can see the cancer is like, even if it's a minority from a minority of voices, like this is very impactful. And the Zionists are taking advantage of this. You know, their general, right? One of their spokesmen, actually, for the IDF, General Avache, okay, Adore Avache or something like this, Israeli. He will come and cite Ibn Abdul Wahhab. He compare like what this IDF spokesperson says and what Adnan Rajit says. And it's the same thing. Like they're saying the same thing. Oh, the Shia are forever our enemy, and they are the Sunnis can never unite with them. They're a cancer. We have to destroy the Shia. We have to destroy Iran.
You and Adnan will bring it together, and maybe some unity can happen there as well.
First, we have to bring you and Adnan together. Let's do first things first. You and Adnan need to come together and make up. Because the last thing I saw was you calling him a shekel collector. So
I didn't call him anything shekel related. Okay, wallahi, I didn't call him anything shekel. But we know you, brother. You're gonna just make things up, okay. You're the bona fide liar, aren't you?
So we gotta bring you two. We're gonna bring you two. You're gonna make up. You're gonna make up together. Mashallah.
No. Look, honestly, I think he's got really good qualities. He's got really good qualities. He really does, and he cares for the dawah. And he's a sincere to he's MBZ a man that's sincere
dawah,
to the
mashallah. Yeah, he cares. MBZ's
and he's
dawah
not allied to
any of these.
I promise you, he's not allied. I've seen. Wallahi.
So why can't he condemn UAE? Why can't he say
there may be a reason? I don't know it myself, but he might have a family member there. Wallahi, there could be a reason for that. But I agree with your sentiment that you know
if
what?
If I were him, then I would just not delve into politics.
Yes, I agree with that.
If he really cares about his family member being held hostage in like the Burj Khalifa, then he shouldn't delve into politics at all.
Why on earth would
he shouldn't open the door to politics at all. Keep away from it because you're going to invite the obvious accusation that you're defending the UAE. So he's actually putting his hostage family members in more danger by talking about Iran and the Shia, calling you a potential kafir. Like this is dangerous for his family members being held hostage in Burj Khalifa.
Adnan Rashid is great qualities. I'm actually regretful that I was disrespectful to him. I was regretful to that, and I wish I had composed myself better. You know, honestly, you know, I shouldn't have responded in that. There's some things I said there were very disrespectful, and I'm glad that they're no longer there on the public record. You know, I said some really disrespect. I didn't call him a shekel collector, but I was, you know,
called him a coin collector, right?
That.
You said he should stick to just coin collecting and not talk about aqidah. And you said he can't recite Juz Amma from the Mus'haf.
How on earth did you catch all that? How did
everyone was following? Everyone was following all of this, and I posted it too. Like I posted it on my Telegram. All of these. Things.
I made public Toba. I shouldn't have called them any of that. Well, it's beneath. I apologize.
Were you lying? Like, were you lying about him not being able to read from Juz Amma?
No, my son's fantastic, bro. My son, if you listen to his Juz Amma, is brilliant, akhi.
Yeah, my son as well. We should have a competition with Adnan on one side and your son and my son, and we'll see. We'll give whoever wins. We'll give them like a candy bar.
You know what? You found my weakness because what you're doing is you're making me laugh. Yeah, and you know that you can do that because I'm gonna find it funny. But I'm trying to say that I'm trying to say I regret what I said. I should have kept my composure. And
No, you
honestly,
should be proud of what you said, and may it be written in your on your scale of good deeds on Yom Al Akhir, because this is like it's very important to call these people out. Like, yeah, I mean it's important. Like someone who can't even read Juz Amma properly, or he doesn't know, like he didn't even know what the Hanbali school was, a school of Aqidah, bro. He's like trying to interrogate me. I roll out the red carpet for Adnan Rashid, treat him with utmost respect, okay, and even glaze him to a certain extent. And then he starts interrogating me, okay, on a live stream that I thought was going to be friendly. That's what the Wahhabis do. They sabotage you and they ambush you. Then he starts interrogating me, and he doesn't even. I ask him, you know, the Hanbali school. Like I follow the Hanbali school when it comes to Aqidah. He said, "Oh, Hanbali is fiqh. Hanbali is fiqh." I mean, it's also Hanbali can refer to the school of Aqidah as well. It can
the
refer to
best thing to
both.
do
He didn't
maybe
even
is
know that. He doesn't even know the basic things, and he wants to have these. He wants to call you a potential kafir. He wants to call me a mushrik. This is disgusting. He considers himself a respectable da'iyah. This should not be allowed. Like he should be shamed back into the closet where he belongs.
Mm. Well, I mean, honestly, I spoke to him for some time. We squashed everything. I don't have any problem. Look, here's my principle, right? And some people call this ikhwanism, and I don't understand why. I really don't understand why. It's just, they might as well call, yeah, astaghfirullah, but they might as well say what Allah says in the Quran is ikhwanism. When he says, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. That's ikhwanism, apparently. My principle is, and I genuinely, wallahi, I don't know about you, but I've been trying to do like, I've had a couple of spiritual teachers who have basically, they're from a Sufi background, yeah, but they don't do the bid'ah. They understand what bid'ah is and they understand what's not bid'ah. They get that, right? But they still offered me something I never got when I was to be honest, I've never gotten that when I was a Salafi, right? Or a neo Salafi, I should say. And it was one of the best things that, I did. But what I was going through with them is that one of the things that I try to do is, especially when it comes to Muslims, I really try, if the person is capable of peace, or if there's a potential of peace with them, I'll always take that. Option. If there's a potential, even if it's 10%. That's why, like, some people attack me. I don't like nowadays. I don't even attack them back. With Adnan, I attacked him back because he did it a couple of times. He did it 3 or 4 times. And on the 5th time, I said, you know what? And I was already onto it, getting attacked by the Arab nationalists, calling me all kinds of words, which I actually found offensive, bro. I can't lie. It made me very angry, bro. Because who are they to speak to me like that? Anyway,
well justified.
Yeah,
well
bro,
justified that those disgusting apes, using that kind of vile language with you, they're disgusting,
yeah, bro.
You're
Bro,
justified.
I'm not gonna lie. I was actually, because usually I'm usually quite disciplined with Twitter. I've been disciplined for the last couple of years, 2-3 years, right? And I understand it's an addictive thing, bro. It's so dangerous. It's so addictive. When you get into it, you get into it. I looked at my screen time. I had hours on Twitter. That's never happened in the last 2-3 years, the amount of hours I had on my Twitter. And it was because I was going back and forth with these guys in Arabic. Yeah. And even some of them are shaykh, and some of their like students of knowledge, doctor kada kada, this and that, and doctor this, and bro, they're all doctor, and they're attacking me, and they're telling me this, and this guy's a student of knowledge, and this guy's a student of knowledge in the Arab world, and it's a new form of attack. So I've never dealt with that. So I'm online, like, engaging with it. And so obviously on the back of that, I was already angry. So when then Adnan came and tried to attack me, I was defensive. I was like, why you've attacked me 3 or 4 times. I said, I'm not going to do nothing back. On the 5th time, I was like, forget this. Why are you talking now? Like, at the end, you saw me getting humiliated. This guy was calling me the N-word. This guy was calling me this. This guy was calling me that. These guys are saying that they're better than me, and you've stayed quiet for the whole time. Why are you getting involved now? Why couldn't you say something when they were being racist? That's why I was like angry. But obviously, he might not have been following all of that. He might this and that. He might not have been thinking about all that. I don't know what his situation is, but I felt angry. And then because I know him personally, I broke bread with him, I couldn't keep my composure. And I regret that, because at the end of the day, bro, I don't want to be dictated by emotion and addiction to Twitter. And it's embarrassing. So with the spiritualist teacher, we've been trying to control my impulses. Sometimes I'll be honest, I make mistakes. I could do better.
There's
I could do better. And in that situation, I think I should have kept my composure. I should have just let, sleeping
there's
dogs lie, whatever it may be.
There's a spiritual dimension to it. So, for example, if you call someone a coin collector, okay, and your intention is to refute a deviant, okay, and to put a deviant in his place so that he shuts his mouth, and your intention is for the sake of Allah. No, really, really. Come on, bro, Muhammad. Let's be serious. Let's be serious. I'm making a serious point about spirituality here. So, did you call him a coin collector for the sake of Allah or for the sake of your nafs? And I agree with you.
I said for my nafs, bro. I'm not. Well, I said it for my nafs. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I said it for my nafs.
So the way to address that, this is what Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali said, right? He makes the distinction about riyah. Riyah is when you hold back from an important action, like you hold back from a good act or an act of ibadah because you're worried about your nafs or you're worried about showing off. He says that's riyah. That's riyah. This is Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali.
I did it because I was angry, bro. I'm not afraid to admit most of the Twitter beefs that